Hello everybody and welcome into my latest live broadcast. It is Wednesday, the 29th of March, 2023, and I'm your host, Kerry Holzman. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I don't normally broadcast on Wednesdays. However, I was able to get all my errands done early this week, and usually Wednesdays I set aside for getting things done that have to be done for personal and business matters during the weekday. And so I found Wednesdays to be the most ideal. And yeah, it's been a while since I've broadcasted on a Wednesday and a little later than normal, but I tried to squeeze it in today just to do something different and not be too predictable. So welcome in. Thanks for joining me. Hello to all my familiar faces or names in blue in the chat, in green, all my supporters and members. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And if you're new here, I hope you'll consider sticking around and joining us in future videos in the chat room and participating with myself and the other viewers, because we have an amazing community of very kind and supportive people. We'd love for you to join us as long as you're not a jerk. Today I've got a review. This is another mini PC. I have a couple more mini PC reviews coming up. I don't have them all yet. They're going to be sent to me, but this one I have, and so I'll review it. It's the Camrui AK1 Pro. Now, Ace Magician and Camrui appear to be the same company. You can often find the same models made by either company. They're nearly identical. I'm not quite sure why the two companies exist. However, I've got a link to Amazon featuring this computer. And there are two versions of it available at Amazon. Let me bring up my screen here and I can show you, because the Amazon page actually shows 4 different versions, but 2 are one processor and 2 are another processor. And then the price variation determines the amount of RAM and storage you get. Other than that, they're essentially the same for each, depending on which processor you get. So let me see, OBS, window capture, and we'll choose Chrome and turn that on. And let me turn off camera 1 and you should see it. Yeah, here we go. So this is the unit I have on the desk in front of me. The Camrui, the AK1 Pro mini desktop, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig of SSD. I don't know why it says ROM. They really need to correct that. It's a previous generation. It's a previous generation processor, and Celeron N5105. So the latest version is the N95 and the N100, I think. There's not a big difference from one generation to the next generation. However, from one generation to 3 or 4 generations ahead, there's a significant performance improvement. So from generation to generation, on average, about 10% difference. And then, of course, depending on which processor we're talking about. So this is on the lower end. This is about the cheapest Intel processor you can get that can run Windows 11 Pro. And as you can see here, it supports 4K. It's got HDMI 2.0. Of course, it's got an RJ45, 4 USB 3.0s. And of course, it's got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth in it as well. And you'll see here it sells for $269.94, but there's a coupon that applies $30 off. I don't know. They're not telling me when these deals start and stop, so I don't know how long this deal is good for. But you're looking at $239. Now here's the thing, and this is the thing that I think shocks most people. If I go over here and open a new page and type in buy Windows 11 from Microsoft, I want you to see how much Microsoft sells officially Windows 11 Pro. Now this one says Windows 11 Home. So they want $139 officially for Home. And for Pro, it should be here, I think. Somewhere in here, Microsoft sells it. I could just do a search for it. Let's see. Surface Student Accessories Refurbished. No, that's not what I want. These videos are all live and unscripted, so I'm going to search for things the same way you do at home. It's not some polished commercial disguised to look like a review. Some people are put off by that. They say, oh my gosh, this guy's so unprepared. All right, here it is. Windows 11 Professional. If you want to buy it from Microsoft, it's $199.99. Of course, Microsoft really doesn't want to sell it to you. It's priced that high because they have to give it a value. You know, it's sort of like when you get a magazine. Remember magazines? And they would say like, this magazine is $5.99 an issue, but you can subscribe to it for 12 months for $12 and it's only $1 a month. It's kind of that kind of thing. Microsoft really doesn't want to sell that to you. They don't want to support you. They would much rather sell it at a discount to somebody else and let them support you. They don't want to deal with you. And anyway, when you consider the official price from Microsoft for Microsoft Office, for Microsoft Windows Professional, Windows 11 Professional is $199.99. This is only a few dollars more than that, $35 more than that. And you're getting a whole computer, a case, a motherboard, a CPU, a cooler, RAM, and storage, and a power supply, and Windows 11 Pro already installed with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. You can't build it for anywhere near that price, so it's a heck of a deal, but it's a very low-end computer. This is a very basic computer. It's nothing, it's really intended to be upgraded. I know some people take issue with me saying that, and I think it's just an understanding issue. Yes, these machines can be upgraded in the sense that you can put larger storage in them and you can put more RAM in them, but it doesn't make any sense why. When you're at this price point, it's really intended to be disposable. It's meant to serve your needs at this level. It's sort of like you could put 32 gigs of RAM on a Core i3 processor, but it doesn't make any sense. You could put hubcaps on your lawnmower, but it doesn't really make any sense. You could go and put $4,000 worth of tires on your $1,000 valued car, but who does that? So what I recommend to people is if you feel like this isn't going to be enough power for you in the near future, buy it the way you foresee you're going to need it now, because it will cost you less to do that now than to wait, unless you're waiting 4 years, 3 or 4 years. If you can get by with this machine for the next 3 or 4 years, there's nothing that can touch it in value. If you want to grow with the machine and you want to expand it, you want to put a better processor in it, you don't want this. You want to build your own computer. I'll tell you that right now. If that's your idea of what computer ownership is for you, then these are not ideal for you. But for the vast majority of computer owners who are using their computers every day to watch YouTube videos, pay bills online, play solitaire, email their friends, even business work, Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Gmail. This is going to handle all that just fine. And you can save all the rest of the money and all the space a traditional tower computer takes up, including all the cleaning of it and dusting of it. You won't have any of those problems with a mini PC. They're very, very reliable. And if you buy it from Amazon, you have a hassle-free return for up to 30 days after you purchase it. So there's always peace of mind. There's no risk here. If you want to try it, you don't like it, you just send it back. As long as you buy it from Amazon, they make returns hassle-free. You don't need a reason why. Your reason why could be, I changed my mind. I no longer need it. I'd rather not say why. They don't care. And then it costs you nothing to return it. It's not like you have to pay for the shipping back. So if you're curious, if you're interested, I encourage you to buy it and don't trust any reviews, because how the machine performs for you and your needs is unique to you. It rarely applies to anybody else. This is a great machine, especially for The older generation that typically have very simple needs, but yet you want to make sure that you're secure and that there's not a lot for them to fuss around with to make mistakes. In other words, getting in the machine to upgrade it, well, again, you can. It just doesn't make financial sense, and the processor is soldered on the board, so that's not going to change. So you can put all the money you want on your wheels and your rims, but the engine in the car can't be replaced. So if it's a low power engine and you're trying to put on high performance wheels and rims, it's kind of silly, and you'd be better off buying a more powerful car, right? So that's my particular opinion as a professional PC computer technician in the industry for over 30 years, still in the industry today. I try to offer practical advice, not emotional advice. And I also deal with everyday customers where money is always their first concern, or their second concern beyond getting their computer fixed, is how much is this going to cost? And the benefit of a machine like this is you've got a warranty on it. And when it's outside of warranty, if something happens to it, it's not that expensive to just simply replace it. And when you replace it, there'll be a newer model out that's more powerful for likely at the same or less than what you paid for this one in a few years. And so the wheel goes. So there's two different mentalities: people who like to get in there and upgrade, they're hobbyists and enthusiasts. And then there's people who they can't be bothered with that. Just give me a computer that works. I don't need a powerhouse, but I want something current. Well, potentially this is it. We're going to open the box, see what's inside, and fire it up. I think I already did the updates on this. I hope I did, or we could be here a while. On these lower end machines, the updates can take quite a while. The good news is, once the updates are done, the machines are relatively fast. They're great for home theater PCs. They don't take up much room. They're very quiet. They don't have a bunch of flashing lights. And if they work out of the box, they'll probably work for years. In other words, if you've got a problem with it, you're probably going to see it immediately, well within your 30-day return period. So that's just because everything is solid state. Now, unless you drop kick it or spill something on it, I can't imagine why something like this would just stop working one day, unless perhaps you had a power spike in your house that could have damaged, through the power lines. But other than that, they're pretty rock solid, and especially if you don't get in there and start monkeying around with them, because when you do that, you risk voiding the warranty and you risk incidentally damaging things. I know I've done it. Sometimes the Wi-Fi wires can be on the lid. You don't realize that, and you pull the little bit too tough off of the top, and then you end up yanking one of the Wi-Fi wires off. Nothing a soldering iron in 5 minutes can't fix, but if you don't own one and you don't have those skills, I don't know if it's worth digging in there, right? For what? So again, they have a cheaper model of this. If we go back to the Amazon page, which is back over here, let's see. I wanted to point out to you that when we scroll down here, there are 4 different models. You'll see where the case kind of looks differently here and here. Well, actually, just this one. And that's a Celeron N5100 with 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage at $269. Oh, hold on, I got to click it for the price to change. $189.94 minus a $40 coupon, so you're at $149.94. And then this one above it, it's a separate, different processor, the Celeron J3455 with 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of solid state storage. It's got a $70 off coupon, putting it right about the same price, about $150, $149. And then the two flavors of what I'm going to show you today. The cheaper version is this 12 gig RAM with 256 gig of storage with the same processor that I have, the Celeron 5105. It's a bit cheaper because you're not getting as much RAM or storage. And there's a $48 coupon bringing that to like $161.94. And then the one I've got in front of me is the quote-unquote expensive one. It's got a $30 off coupon, putting the price at about $240, $239.94. and it's got 16 gigs of RAM instead of 12, and doubles the storage from 256 there to 512. Otherwise, it's all identical. It's Windows 11 Pro installed. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at today. And again, this is a very inexpensive computer meant to cover the basics, and for the majority of computer consumer users out there, it's very adequate, especially compared to what they might be using. It could be leaps and bounds better than that 10-year-old computer or even that 6-year-old computer they might be using, especially if that 6-year-old computer was considered a cheap computer 6 years ago when they bought it around $300. This is now even cheaper than that with more power, and it's faster and it's smaller and it's likely quieter and it's likely more reliable, likely. Now, if you've owned a Camrui or you have a mini PC, let me know what you think about it. Put it in the chat. Let us know what you have, how long you've had it, and if you recommend them. I'm very curious what you guys out there think of them. And I'm going to, speaking of that, go back over to the chat room. And Nicholas Menard with a $25 Canadian contribution in Super Chat says, "Now that's funny. I was listening to your live stream from a day ago, and then I came home from work, and there you were again. Isn't it wonderful? I love what you do and the great community you've built, Carrie. Rock on." That's very kind of you, Nicholas. Thank you for your Super Chat contribution, and thank you for your kind words and for being a part of this amazing community. You're part of what makes it amazing, so thank you. And just scroll. A bunch of people saying hello. Hello, everybody. These are live, unscripted, one-take videos. So if you're watching this, and today is not Wednesday, March 29th in America, then you're watching a replay of a live video. Gets confusing. YouTube really needs to put some kind of an indicator on the screen because you can't tell. Is it live? Well, right now it is. Let me open this box and see what we've got in here. Okay, here's the PC. It looks like I've taken this out of the box, and if I've done that, it's likely because I wanted to do all the updates, because we could sit here a while waiting. But it's possible more updates have come out since then, but at least I hope I got the bulk of them out of the way. Let me walk up to the camera and show this to you, since I don't have a cam girl today, so I will do everything myself. Of course, the Camrui logo is definitely a differentiation between this and the Ace Magician. Other than that, Ace Magician also makes an AK1 Pro that's spec'd out the same. We've got this weird, what looks like a copper heatsink, but I think it's just plastic that's painted copper. I think it's just there to look cool. And around the edges, let's take a look at the ports. Up here in the front, power button, 2 USB Type A's, 3 USB Type A's. Wow, that's a lot of USB ports right up front. I like that. They're starting to remove USB Type A ports, like all the new Dell XPS laptops. You're no longer getting an HDMI port. You're no longer getting anything but USB Type C. So how do you plug a flash drive in, or how do you plug into a monitor? Well, you've got to get a little breakout box, basically, that converts the USB Type C and breaks it into a couple of USB 3.0s and Type A's, and also breaks it out to an HDMI port. And Dell, is going to tack on $60, $70 for that part. It's ridiculous. You go on Amazon and buy one for $15 all day. But boy, I'll tell you, my 8th gen Dell XPS, I still use it today. It's rocket ship fast. And I have a combination of USB Type A and one Type C port. And it saddens me that if I want to get a 13th gen Dell XPS, I have no HDMI port and no USB Type A ports without carrying around an extra little adapter. So stupid. Anyway, I like that they're giving us 2 USB 3s and a USB 2 right up front. You don't have to reach around the sides or anything. So plug your keyboard and mouse in there if you want, or flash drives. And then as we come around to the side, we have, actually, this is the side. That's interesting. The power button's on the side, because technically this is the front of it and there's nothing on the front. So as we come around this way, that's our power button in USB. There is our 2 HDMI ports, which support 4K, and you can use them both at the same time, powering 2 monitors. Here's our power input, another USB port, our Gigabit LAN adapter, looks like a headphone or a headset jack. Yeah, you can use this for microphone, you can use this for speaker out, or you can use this for a headset, that one jack. And then you've got a K-lock or a Kensington lock port here, so you can put a steel cable that locks in there to prevent somebody from stealing it if that's a problem. So I think the other 2 sides are blank. Yeah. On the bottom, we have information about the unit, including if you have support questions. Sometimes I've had people email me, how do you do this or how do you do that on the whatever mini PC they bought? And I always advise them to contact support. And you can usually find support information on the bottom of the unit, regardless of the manufacturer. Now, this also has the ability to mount it to the back of your monitor with a VESA mount, so you don't even have to see it. Although how you're going to plug stuff into USB, I don't know. And then it looks like we have an access panel here with 2 release mechanisms, but we'd have to unscrew that, and that likely gets you in for easy upgrades that, once again, I wouldn't do. I would buy the machine the way you need it for the next couple of years that you can anticipate. And of course, it's at your discretion if you want to get in there. But I mean, really, if that's your thing, maybe just build your own computer. Buy what is how you intend to use it. You know, I wouldn't buy, for example, an underpowered vehicle and then turn around and put a turbo on it and a better cooling system. And then by the time I'm done with all the parts and labor and voiding my warranty and doing so, potentially damaging things, it will cost me more to do it that way in most cases than to simply buy the vehicle already equipped with it. However, you know, if it's a few years down the road and now you want 32 gigs of RAM, like I'm not even sure what the max of Celeron supports. However, you know, potentially you want to upgrade the storage, it's all right in there. So it looks super easy to get at, and I can appreciate that. It also looks like it's got the ability to hang it on a wall, like a picture. That's pretty cool too. Now, going back to the box, see what else we have in here. Get that out of there. We have a power adapter. We have a very short HDMI cable. This is if you were going to hang the unit behind your monitor. You don't want a 5 or 6 foot HDMI cable that only needs to run that far. If you're not doing that, then obviously that's going to be too short of a cable. This is that VESA bracket I mentioned, the mounting bracket. Fully optional with screws that you would need, so you don't want to use the wrong screws in this. You could go right through into the circuit board if the screws are too long. If the screws are too coarse, you could strip out the threads. There's no putting it back, all right? So be sure you save these parts, because if you don't need them today, well, you might need them tomorrow. You might sell it to somebody who wants them. And then we've got our owner's manual right there. And that's everything you get. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And the one complaint that I have about these in general is that when you get these power cords, their cable's relatively short. I'd say it's about 4 feet maybe. And I would prefer if they were 6 feet. However, nothing an extension cord can't fix to plug this into. So what I have to do, because even just running from the floor to the top of this countertop here, I have to put the unit closer to the plug. This is how much slack I have when I plugged it in. That's about 1 foot. So I think that's kind of a bummer. And we're going to plug that in right there. And then, let's see, I don't want to plug it into the network yet, but I will plug it into the capture card. The reason I don't want to plug it into the network is I don't want it to force me to create an account for Microsoft. I don't use it because I often sell computers to customers, and I'm not going to sign into my Microsoft account on my customer's computer. That's just weird, don't you think? Unprofessional. I don't have a problem with Microsoft accounts. I don't use one myself, and you shouldn't be forced into using it. And so far, Microsoft tries to convince you, and they do their best to convince you to have one, but they aren't required. And there are benefits to having them, by the way, but no benefits for me. All right. Keyboard and mouse. I just use these little wireless rechargeable. This one's made by Seenda, S-E-E-N-D-A, and it just uses one little dongle for both the keyboard and the mouse. There's no replaceable batteries in these. They're rechargeable through USB. They last me about 3 to 5 months. Let's just say 4 months between charges, but I only use them a couple hours a day. So your mileage may vary, but I like how small they are. I don't want the numeric keypad because I have very limited desk space, as you can see, and I need multiple keyboards. This one controls the streamer over here. This one will now control that PC there. And make sure they're turned on. Okay, we're ready to power this bad boy up and see what happens. And let me go to HDMI input. Here we go. I'll tell you what, I want to take camera 1 and I'm going to put it up in a corner here so you can see me and get an idea of how long this machine takes to boot. I'll put this over here like this, and we'll move this box so you can see what it is we're using. Okay, and then I'm gonna go to the side, hit the power button. It lights up in blue. I'm not quite sure you can see that with the studio lights, but it's got a little blue light around the edge. It doesn't blink or fade or anything. It's a steady blue. It's not very bright, thankfully. And I think I need to make the video a little smaller. Let's see. Try that. That way we can see the desktop a little better. And then I need to go full screen so I can see what's going on, which did not work for me. Hang in there. There it is. Okay, now I can see. And of course you can see we are not on a network, and I already did the updates on this. So it's safe for me to plug the network in. So I'm going to step back around. I have a network cable laying on the floor here that I can plug in. And we'll just plug that in right there. That's a gigabit network port. And we come back over here. And we're going to go over to Windows Update. I'm going to just double check that I have all my updates, because I don't feel it's fair when reviewers review units that they haven't updated, especially if they're way out of date. So there might be 1 or 2 new updates, or 3 since I last checked. But while we're looking, one of the things I don't like about Windows 11 is, you know, on Windows 10, I like to see everything that's running in this bottom system tray on the bottom right here. And I don't like that my security settings have a hazard sign, but it's hidden. Like, that's really important, and that should be in my visible, in my view down here at the system tray at all times. I don't know what it needs, but let's take a look. Oh, this wants me to sign into Microsoft. I'm not doing that. App and browser control. I don't know why that would be turned off by default, but that's the way it is on every Windows 11 install. Okay, everything else looks good. So, and I'm just doing that while I'm waiting for these few updates to install. And then I'm going to look back down here and see if there's a hazard. There is another hazard sign. So now what? Well, we're back to using a OneDrive. I don't use Microsoft OneDrive, so I'm going to dismiss that. Are you going to leave me alone now or what? Well, it won't even let me dismiss it. That might be because the computer has a Celeron processor, and right now we're asking that computer to do a lot. Like right now it's downloading, and we already got an install error here. That likely occurred because it was already installing that in the background, plus we forced it to install on top of that, and plus I'm playing around where a machine at this power level, it's not going to multitask as well. So the more I start taxing it, it's going to do everything. It's just going to take longer to do each thing if we're asking it to do multiple things simultaneously. So just so you know, that's just unique. Let me rephrase, that's not unique for this level of hardware. If you were to build your own computer and picked out that processor, that amount of RAM and that type of storage, you will get exactly the same performance out of it, regardless of how big or little it is. Ferris has become a supporter. Right on. Thank you, Ferris. Martin said, oh, they're talking to each other there. Somebody said it was slow, and he said, slow is a relative term. They're slower than i3s, but perfectly sufficient for all casual computing needs. So I've noticed some people never have enough, right? Some people you could give them 6 gigahertz on a 13900 KS and they want to overclock it, right? What's interesting to me is when I talk to these people, many of these people, they're not the fastest people, but boy, do they want the fastest stuff. And if you've got an open wallet and you can spend that kind of cash and you're going to be that demanding, by all means, if you've got the cash to support your demands, so be it. But for the vast majority of people out there, they don't know what processor they have. They don't know, like when a customer calls me and I ask them if they're running Windows 10 or Windows 11, they ask me quite often, how can I tell? When I ask them, what kind of computer do you have? They go, I don't know, or I have a Dell, or I have an HP, and they don't get any more specific than that. And I'm like, well, do you have a desktop computer or do you have a laptop computer? This is when I'm talking to customers who I've never spoken to before over the telephone. I never have to define the difference between a desktop or a laptop. They universally understand that. I ask them how old it is. They generally never know. I say, okay, well, that's why I'm asking, is it Windows 10 or Windows 11 so we get a feel? Or is it Windows 7? Have you had it more than 10 years? You know, and then sometimes you'll hear, I don't know, I bought it off somebody on Craigslist. Okay, so it's probably something old. And it may not be worth putting money in to repair it. I don't want to waste any customer's money. I'm a terrible businessman. I should just take all the work and charge them for it. And if they want to spend $125 or $200 to upgrade and repair a 14-year-old computer that isn't worth anything at all, why should I stop them? But that's what I do. I say, look, you could take the amount it's going to cost you to repair it, and you can go to Amazon and you can buy one of these little mini computers. And to some people's view, they're slow, but to your view, it's going to be like a rocket ship, right? Like if all you do all day is eat at McDonald's, when you go sit down in a fine dining establishment, that might be the best meal you've ever had. The attentive service, they look after you, the care taken with each meal. And I'm talking about fine dining experience here. If you haven't had anything to eat for 4 days and I give you a cracker, that will be the best cracker you've ever had in your life. So to each his own. If you are somebody who is very elitist and you need to have the best, you do not represent the vast majority of computer owners who, first of all, don't care, and secondly, wouldn't spend that money. So just so you know, I can tell you what keeps me in business. And it's not the people who are the hardest to demand. Those are the ones I don't want to take on as customers, because those people will never be happy, generally speaking, until they do it themselves. Nobody will ever do anything good enough for them, at least where they consider themselves to be knowledgeable. And so as a business owner, they take too much time and there's not enough money to be made. But I do want to set proper expectations. Nobody's giving away a $6,000 computer for $200. And you'd be crazy to think that's being ever offered. But if you look back at what a $3,000 computer was 15 years ago and compare it to this for $260, whatever it is, you'd say, holy cow, that's an amazing value. So it depends on how you choose to look at it, and it is your choice. And different people and different perspectives exist, and that's what makes the world go around. But I'm here trying to appeal to the majority, not to the enthusiasts. I do some enthusiast builds from time to time, but let's face it, YouTube is just chock full of enthusiast builds, and there's not enough practical information for your average computer owner. And that's the niche I'm trying to fill. So anyway, let me take a look at how we're progressing, because I've not been paying attention. The Windows malicious tool and cumulative updates for Windows 11. Now, part of the problem is I have a slow internet connection here. And it doesn't matter how fast my computer is if my internet connection is slow and I'm trying to download something or do something online. Sort of like having a Ferrari and getting it on the freeway at rush hour. You're not going any faster than the cars around you. So kind of pointless exercise to try to get all this power and then turn around and have a bottleneck on your connection. So we'll give that a few minutes to process. And in the meantime, let me go back to the chat room and take a look. Glenn's Music says, no nerds allowed. I've taken all those places. Nerds are great people. Nerds are just passionate people. Nothing wrong with being passionate. But to be elitist or to be snobbish, that's not a nerd thing. Well, some nerds can be elitist and snobbish, but you know, we're not trying to, I'm not trying to make this out to be something it isn't. I'm not trying to deceive. I'm not trying to misrepresent. And so to call out the obvious and say, well, that's not a 13900K, you could buy 3 of these for less than the price of a 13900KS processor. And you'd still need a motherboard, a cooler, RAM, storage, case, power supply, and an operating system, plus Wi-Fi and Bluetooth if you want to match what this has. So you are going to get a lot for your money, I believe, at this price point. But no, you're not getting the best that can be bought. That's going to cost you 10 times more, minimum. So anyway, with that out of the way, let me just see. Jeff H says hello. Welcome in, Jeff. And Mark Gaines saying hello. Sherry McFarland says hello. Sherry McFarland says nerd power. I don't like the negative connotation of the word nerd, right? I think I had enough of that in the 80s. Now nerds are cool, so we'll keep it cool that way. eZooter said, I'm using an Intel Core 2 Duo CPU, the E7500 at 2.93 gigahertz. That's really slow, so I'm looking for a good replacement on a budget. So that processor you're using, the E7500, I think is 16 or 17 years old, and it's long lived past its intended life. And you could compare a 2.93 gigahertz processor to a 1.1 gigahertz modern processor. Your 2.93 won't be anywhere near as fast as a modern 1.1 because there's so much more than frequency. We've got caching and we've got lanes of traffic, PCIe lanes. We've got faster memory with DDR4 or DDR5. Everything's faster. Storage is faster with M.2, which your computer isn't going to support. Or even SATA. I don't know if that machine would even support SATA 3 or even SATA 1. That's so old. So, you know, for somebody running an older machine like that, this is a very affordable replacement. And if you buy it from Amazon, you have hassle-free returns. If for any reason it doesn't live up to your expectation, any reason at all, you have 30 days to return it for a full refund and no cost to you to return. So there's no risk there. And of course, I'm referring to Amazon in America. I'm not quite sure what the processes are in other countries. Bob R said he has purchased the Camrui GK3 almost a month now, and it's been running fine. Hey, Bob, I appreciate the update on that. Shamim jumps in the chat, says hello, and Elko saying hello. He says he's enjoying a new AMD Ryzen 9 7950X. Once again, you could buy 3 of these, well, at least 2 of these for the price of just his processor. So you enjoy that. It's great when you can afford nice things. Sometimes we have to sacrifice what nice things we want in order to get the nice things we really, really want. You can have anything you want, you just can't have everything you want. So I sacrifice a lot. Believe me, you don't see me wearing fancy clothes or fancy shoes. I know people that spend all kinds of money constantly with shoes and clothes, and they spend thousands. Well, I'm still spending the same thousands, but for me, it's on nerd stuff. It's on computers and monitors and networking equipment, routers. Yeah, it never ends. So we each have our passion. But would I like a Tom Ford custom-made John Wick style suit for $5,000? I'd like it, and if I had one, I'd wear it. But I can't afford that and, have a $4,400 streaming computer. It's kind of got to be one or the other. I've been eyeballing that new Dell XPS. The 13th gen is out. But if I strip it down with just Windows 11 Pro and the minimum amount of RAM and storage, which I think is 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gig SSD, and then upgrade it myself, as you saw me do on camera with my last two Dell XPSs, I'm at $2,500, and then there's $200 in sales tax, bringing that to around $2,700. I could buy an ounce of gold for less than that. In 10 years from now, which one do you think is going to be worth more? That Dell XPS or that ounce of gold? And when I die and leave things to people, and I have to leave the laptop to somebody, and I have to leave the ounce of gold coin to somebody, which thing do you think everybody's going to want? So I'd like to have both. I'd also like to have a Tesla, but still can't afford it. But that's okay, because that trade-off and that sacrifice is something I've consciously made, and I'm happy with my decision, and I don't have everything. And that's okay, because I wouldn't have anywhere to put it. Glenn's Music said you literally drag those hidden icons down onto the notification area. Oh, can you do that in Windows 11? Because that doesn't work in Windows 10. Let me just take a quick look here. We'll go full screen again. This still seems to be stuck on downloading, so let me go down here. Oh, I'm using the wrong mouse. Let me come over here. Let's go to this icon. Hey, it's finally moving. Let's drag it out here. Hey, that did work. I can drag them all out. Well, thank you, Glenn's Music. I did not know that. I don't need the cloud. Okay, so now, but this should be the default. This is my argument, all right? It's not an argument that you can't put it there. The argument is that it's not there by default. This is a very important icon you want to keep an eye on at all times. Not that one, Carrie. I don't need Teams. Can I hide Teams? Just quit Teams. Let's double click on the little globe there and see. Oh, okay, what do we have? Device security, go to settings. Let's turn that on. And then it's going to want to reboot. Or just shut off. Oh, I see. Yeah, it wants to restart. Let's go ahead and restart it, because I think the Windows update got stuck, or I'm just impatient. You do need a little bit more patience, especially if you're doing updates on these entry-level machines. The good news is, with the updates out of the way, updates happen once a month, and you can configure them to run at night, or you can just do it manually once a month and do it while you're doing something else. Maybe you're going to run to the store, start it before you go to the store. By the time you come back, it'll be done waiting for you. Or set it up to do that before you go to bed, and when you wake up in the morning, the computer's the most patient thing in the world. It will patiently wait for you. And you can just shut your monitor off so you're not wasting any power. These are very low power consumption. They cost very little money to run, and you could just leave them on. So unless you've got it blocking airflow, if you feel it, it's getting really, really hot. Warm is okay. Hot is not okay. Then you wouldn't want to leave it on all the time, or you want to physically move it, because you might be placing it like on a bookshelf or within a cabinet, because you want it to be out of sight, not of mind. and you're suffocating it. And that could be fine if you're using it a couple hours, but if you're going to leave it on 24/7, you absolutely want to make sure you've got good airflow, and you'll know by feeling it. This is warm, but it's not hot, so we're good. I'm going to go back to Windows Update and, oh wait, this thing is still giving me the yellow hazard symbol. What now? Oh, we're back to this again. Device security, memory access protection. Okay, nothing looks upset here. What's the problem? Local security authority. The local security authority protection is off. Oh, that's what it wants? This change requires you to restart your device. Okay, I don't know why these aren't on by default. So let's restart it. You'll see it restarts relatively quickly. It's pretty fast little boot up, pretty fast shutdown. It's perfectly silent. I don't hear this at all. And like I said, it's warm, but it's not hot, and I would expect that out of a small case that doesn't have a lot of airflow to begin with. The only moving part it's got in there is the CPU cooling fan. So it's not like there's a lot to break unless, like I said, you drop kick it, spill something on it, or there's a power surge in your house that could damage anything plugged in. And all those things, dropping it, spilling something on it, would damage anything plugged in, theoretically. All right, now let me go. Are we happy with the security? No, it's still giving me the hazard. Go to settings. It looks happy to me. Local security authority protection is off. I just turned it on. I don't know. I'm not going to worry about that. Maybe I'm just being impatient. It's still processing. I'm going to go back to Windows Update, and we'll revisit that to see if it's just me being impatient. I also want to check, well, one thing at a time, Carrie. Windows Update. Oh, I went back to downloading in the background automatically. Did you see that? Tricky. Let's go to, let's go to the control, let's go to system right here. That's what I want. System. About. We can see our processor is the N5105. We've got 16 gigs of RAM, 15.8 is usable because the onboard graphics are gonna need some RAM, so they they borrow from our system RAM. We're running Windows 11 Pro. It is 21H2. Oh, see, this keeps getting by me. I always like to update these to 22H2 before I do the reviews. And if the update's not being offered by Windows Update, it will be. Just give it a few days. Or you could simply download the Windows 11 installation media and just install it on top if you want to force it. But again, that's going to take probably, when you do that and then do the updates, probably take about an hour. So I'm not going to do that today, but this is what I'm talking about. Like, I should not be reviewing this with 21H2 on it, but this is how you can expect it to arrive because the system integrators who build these, they don't generally make a new image that often, and so their image is out of date. So be aware of that. And in fact, it may even fix our security problem down here. The other problem could be that the security is trying to run a process, but it's doing these updates at the same time, and so it's juggling those two things. And that's why our download is much, much slower than it should be. And then, of course, once it starts to install that download, assuming it's doing something here in the background, it's taking on multitasking, where this is much, much better, more responsive. It's single tasks. So from time to time, if you're asking it to do multiple things at the same time, you are going to notice it's going to bog down because it's working. but it hasn't really generated a lot of heat. I would know that because the fan would be audibly much more noticeable. I don't even hear it. The only way I know it's on is the blue light. I don't even see a hard drive activity light. I don't see any other LEDs around here. It kind of disappoints me. I'd like to see if the hard drive's reading or writing just to tell if things are progressing. However, these days that doesn't really mean a lot. So I understand why they did it. It's more aesthetically pleasing to see it that way. And at least you know that it's on because it is so quiet. We need something, some visible indication that the machine is on, just in case you're not getting video and you need to diagnose it. So again, I'm going to go back over to the chat while we're waiting and see what we have to say here. John Williams says, that is a quad-core CPU? Yes, but it's all going to be the efficiency cores. They're not the high-performance cores. So what should amaze you is how little power this thing takes from the wall. It's very low power. It's an amazing amount of performance for just a little tiny bit of power. It's very impressive. When people talk about their high-end CPUs like a 13900KS or a 7950 Ryzen, 7950X, they are massive power consumers. It's sort of like looking at a 70s muscle car and you go, wow, that thing's fast. Okay, but what gas mileage does it get? And most people who can afford that level of car say, if you can't afford the gas, you can't afford the car, right? So you don't see those cars everywhere because most people can't afford them or they're just not practical. And much the same way computers can be related in a similar analogy. Glenn's Music says the cumulative update download speed will get faster as the download progresses. Yeah, it will sort of jump. I think people are familiar with that. Installation will say it takes 10 minutes and then it'll jump and say there's only 1 minute left after 45 seconds. And again, I do have a pretty slow internet connection here. I think it's around 30 megabits. So in reality, that works out to about 4 megabytes per second, maybe less than that. So big downloads can take a while here. John Famlor says, he's talking to Martin in the chat. He says his internal CD writers, sadly, eventually got burned out due to heat, even on Apple machines. You can buy CD writers really inexpensive. Nobody wants them anymore, and trying to find blank ones, blank CDs to write to, getting harder and harder. So that's an obsolete technology now. So would you use it if you still had it when a flash drive is so much faster, more reusable, more reliable? You don't have to worry about scratches. You don't have to worry about size limitations. I got an itchy nose today. I don't know what's going on. Glenn's Music says, Carrie, right-click on the taskbar, select taskbar settings. Check out the section Other System Tray Icons, and yes, they should definitely be on by default. Yeah, unfortunately they're not, right? We can all agree. He's not saying they should be on in the sense that something's wrong. He's saying Microsoft should by default have those on, and they're not. And that's an important tip, I think, if you were running Windows 11. I'm dabbling in Windows 11 and I'm still figuring it out. And so any help you guys offer, I deeply appreciate it. But I'll give you some examples of things I've learned recently on Windows 11 that are little things that I change. And I'm going to show you, since we're waiting on these updates, we can multitask this. It's not going to hurt anything. First of all, Microsoft has gone out of their way to make things hidden. And that bothers me because we're just basically working with Windows 10 here, but they put a new skin on it. So we go down here to the search bar and I type in plan, P-L-A-N, you'll see edit power plan. And what ends up happening if I don't do this is when I'm live and streaming, you'll see the system appears to go offline when in fact it's just going to sleep. And I needed a quick way to get to this. So I figured out by typing in the word plan, I don't have to dig through the control panel that way. Of course, you can go into settings, which is what they're calling the control panel now, and you could find it there. But I wanted a faster way to get to it because I've got dozens of machines to go through. So that's one thing I change. Another thing I'll do is after I run storage sense, which I'll just type STORA, and you'll see storage settings comes up. I just press enter and I go here to storage sense and I make sure that's turned on. And I set it to run every 30 days. That's my personal preference. And I don't want it to leave anything out of my downloads. And then I can choose to run it now if I want to. All right, so that's another thing I change. But I've also been disappointed that and don't worry, that Windows update's still happening in the background, even though I've closed the window, it's running in the back. I'm disappointed that when I go to my C drive to clean up system files, I right click and go to properties, cleaning up. Oh, it is here? This cleanup is here? That's the first time I've noticed it. I was going to say I'm having a hard time finding it in Windows 11. So what I do is come down here and just type DIS and disk cleanup shows up. So we're back to typing back in the DOS days. It's pretty preposterous. I'll also uninstall unwanted apps, but you have to understand this is not bloatware. These apps are super tiny. And so to get to that, I just go over here to apps, and then in Windows 7 or 10, we just see the apps, but no, that's too easy. We have to make another click to apps and features that are installed, and then give this a second to populate. There it goes. And then I look through here for things I don't want. So I'll give you an example. This media player, it's 16K in size. That is nothing. I just don't want it. It's distracting, so I'm going to uninstall it. This Office 365, this is to sell you Office 365. It's not actually a full working copy of Office unless you give them money. Again, it's only 60K. This is not bloatware. This is just advertising, okay? It's not taking up much in the way of system resources that anybody would ever notice, even on a low-end machine like this, an entry-level machine. Movies and TV, I don't want that. I'm going to replace movies and TV with VLC. Remember the Groove Music player I always uninstall in Windows 10? Where is it? Microsoft just can't make up their mind what they want to do. This news thing, once again, 16K. It's nothing. It's just in the way. I don't need to see it. I'm never going to use it. What else do we have in here? I'll keep solitaire. Customers want that. I'll keep the weather. Customers always want to see the weather. This Xbox thing I take out, uninstall, and the Xbox Live I take out. And you can do multiples of these at the same time. You don't have to wait for one uninstall to finish like you did back in Windows 7. And then I'm going to just take one more peek through here and make sure everything looks happy. I personally would take out Windows Teams, and I would also take out Windows OneDrive or Microsoft OneDrive because I don't use them. But because this isn't my machine, I leave those in and let the customers decide. So those are a few little things that I do to optimize Windows 11. The other thing I'll do is when you get that little search highlights icon down here in the search bar that drives everybody seemingly crazy, what I'll do is I'll just type the word search permission, PER, and then that's it. Just hit enter. And you can also just go to settings and find it there. And then you're going to scroll about halfway down to this last, it says more settings. Drive search highlights, we're going to turn that off, or show search highlight. That's where that is on Windows 11. On Windows 10, I just right-clicked on the taskbar. It went to the menu that appeared. It was 2 clicks. Now it's like 4 clicks. I don't know why Microsoft has made so many things hidden and hard to find, and yet at the same time, not really given us any benefit for that. Like now what can I do in Windows 11 that I could not do in Windows 10? So far as I can tell, nothing that most people do has any improvement on Windows 11. And in some cases, Windows 11 makes it slower or it doesn't work at all, depending on the software you're using. So they've got to keep evolving Windows 11 to give it some return on investment, because this is just taking more of my time to do the exact same thing, and for no benefit. So I'm going to go back to Windows Update just because I want to keep an eye on where we're at. I always keep looking down the main page just like I did for Windows 10, but it's all the way to the left. And one of the problems is for average users, when they call you on the phone and you tell them to do that, and their window isn't open this big, and their window, and I can't see their screen when I'm talking to them on the phone, but their window's open like that, and they're like, where's the Windows Update at, Carrie? I'm like, it's on the left. And they're looking and they're like, I don't see it. There's no Windows Update here. Now you can, in the case of Windows Update, find it all the way up at the top. But I always tell them, look on the left. And sometimes they're like, there's nothing on the left. And that's because, and there's no indication to tell you you're missing anything here, right? So when you stretch this out, all of a sudden, oh, there's stuff here. I didn't know that was there. I didn't know that was hidden. So there's this whole hidden theme with Windows 11. Let's hide everything from the customer. That's crazy, crazy. And you know, Microsoft doesn't care if you like it or not. You're not making or breaking their bank account if you buy it or you don't buy it. They don't care. So, you know, people can start a tweet campaign, I suppose, but likely there's not enough people that care to drive any campaign like that to draw attention. And I'd be glad to be wrong in that manner. I've had some people, they don't like Microsoft Edge now has this Bing button up here. And people are, oh, I don't want to see that. Well, there is a way to remove that by simply changing the command line to disable that feature. But for me, I'll tell you what I don't like about this is if we were to go to AMD's website, let's look up AMD Adrenalin. Okay, let's just say we want the latest Adrenalin drivers. If this was an AMD system, this is not. I just want to show you this as a demonstration of what's wrong with the browser. And part of it is the fault of AMD. But if we go to download the Adrenalin drivers, if this was a Ryzen computer, which it is not, but if it was, stay with me, because it won't change how broken it appears. I hit download now, and I'll click, let's see, I want to download let's download graphics drivers for, like a mini PC might have a 5600U processor with built-in graphics, so we have to find integrated motherboard graphics. No, it's integrated CPU graphics. And it's not a matter of looking up the Radeon driver, it's a matter of looking up the CPU video driver. So the 56U probably has a Vega Series 7, but you won't find a Vega Series 7 offered here. So we'll look at, let's see. Oh, there's so much to choose from. This is so more complicated than it needs to be. Processors with graphics. Oh, that's what I have to do. All right, now here's another long series. Which one is it? Okay, let's see. AMD Ryzen processor. Okay, so here's what I want to show you is if you see how this is opening to the right, and let's say I've got a 5600U processor. Somewhere in this long list, AMD Ryzen, AMD Ryzen 5 processors. Now, it's a 5600, so it's a mobile processor. Mobile processors with Radeon graphics, Ryzen 5. Okay. Is this the 5600U or is this the 5600U? I can't see. The AMD website cuts it off. And if I make my text smaller, Doesn't help me one way or the other. That never moves. It's maddening. And I thought, well, this thing's getting in the way. So my first thought was, I was looking at it kind of like this. And I thought maybe it's because this bar here is in the way and it can't fit it. So you go up here to these three dots and you go to settings. It's under settings. And sidebar. And we're going to not show the sidebar. Let's get rid of it. I mean, that was easy, right? But it's not helping us here. I still don't know. Oh, wait a minute. I can kind of make out an H now and a U now. But what I just discovered when I was demonstrating this to you is if we make the window smaller, then it goes vertically stacked. I didn't realize that earlier today. And now I can see which one's H and which one's U, although they probably point to the same driver installer anyway. And yes, I know there's an auto detect tool, but when I ran the auto detect tool, it found the driver it needed for that mini PC, a different mini PC than this one. It failed to download it from AMD's website, and I ran it 3 times, and all 3 times it failed, and it left me no choice but to download the driver by hand. And I got stuck because I couldn't read it, and I didn't want to download Chrome on a customer's computer who may not want it, simply because I was trying to get the AMD Adrenaline drivers on it. It's maddening. So again, thank you Windows 11, and thank you AMD. You guys are, Microsoft and AMD just really securing my job. That's what you're doing. The job security that I get from them is much more so than any other manufacturer in the world. So I don't know if they're a company I should love or a company I should hate. So both of them. What are you going to do? All right. Just looking in the chat, see what's being discussed. Bikeman likes Windows 11. Yeah, I suppose when you get used to it, I'm not used to it. And the way I have to go about doing things is so very different from Windows 10, and yet without seemingly any benefit for the additional steps. It's like angers me what benefit there was to changing that. If it made it more efficient, made it faster to get to the settings, if it made it more clear, but it's opaque. It's made everything hidden. Too many things are hidden, in my opinion. And it's taking away control from the user. It's becoming more like Apple. If you want an Apple and you want decisions to be made for you and you don't trust yourself and you want to have, gates put up around so you can't go or do certain things, Apple is for you, and you'll pay more for it. It drives me crazy to be told I can't do something, or to have a special hidden key combination to get into a very basic menu that's not in any way advanced, but they consider it advanced because they're trying to accommodate to users who don't have a digital mindset. So to them, it's all advanced. I'm not that user. I'm a more technical user, and that's why I use Windows. I like having more control over my operating system. And this move into Windows 11, and by the way, they did a little bit of this in Windows 10, where they restricted some things. They're talking about, more and more settings in the control panel are going away. So thankfully, if you know the key combinations, you can still find some of those hidden control panel settings. But you'll see there's no control panel. As far as I know, there's no control panel in Windows 11. Let me just check that. Let me go full screen again. Let me come down here and see if it's still there. If we type in control panel, it looks like it's still there. Boy, that's pretty well hidden, isn't it? And then all of these menus are kind of hidden. You've got to come over here. You've got to come over to the right here and choose large icons. And now, oh, thank goodness they haven't taken it out yet. That's supposed to go. soon. So let's remember it. Let's take a moment to appreciate it while we still have it. Microsoft thinks we don't need that anymore. They're keeping it in to appease people, but they're going to just silently let it die, and they probably won't say anything. It'll just be an update one day. It'll be gone. People will be outraged. Small amount of people, not enough for Microsoft to care. Unless I'm wrong, and then it takes all this media attention, they'll be forced to put it back. But likely the people that'll be outraged aren't a large enough voice. We seem to be stuck on this update for some reason, and I'm going to restart because I'm too impatient to wait for it, and hopefully that will kick off the install. I'll know if it says updating here on this screen, and if not, then at least when I restart and go back to Windows Update, it should start the update. So it's likely it was waiting for something, Windows Update was waiting for something to finish in the background before it started this update, and I don't have the patience to wait for it. So by restarting, I've killed all the processes. And when the machine comes back up, it should start to install automatically, regardless if we go to Windows Update or not. I always go to Windows Update regardless because I want to see it. I don't want to trust that it's happening. I do not trust technology. I've been using this technology since I was 13 years old, and it's never been trustworthy. Never. You can rely on it. And as soon as you start relying on it, it will let you down. The minute you start to trust it, that's when it'll snap at you. And you won't realize it likely for days, weeks, or months that whatever it was supposed to be doing, because you haven't checked on it, something will bring it to your attention one day and you'll say, oh my gosh, this hasn't been working for weeks or months. I can't tell you how often that happens. So they need babysitting, they need auditing. You always have to keep an eye on a computer, especially any automated tasks. Things screw them up, like daylight savings time will screw up automated scheduled tasks, and updates will screw up scheduled tasks. And then hardware failures that don't report can screw up scheduled tasks. And then suddenly you realize the updates aren't backing up, or your scheduling isn't backing up the files. And you go, well, how long has that been happening? And so certain things you get logs, but then people get lazy and they don't read the logs. They figure, well, I got the log, everything must be fine. Logs don't work like that. But you just keep repeating like a computer. I get the log, it's fine. I get the log, it's fine. I get the log, it's fine. Here comes the log, I'm sure it's fine. That's when it bites. And we've got a ways to go for evolving computers so like we can rely on them. They're just not at a level that we can really count on them without auditing. So whether that audit is once a week or once a month is up to you. But yes, I mean, I can't stress enough how important auditing is. All right, let me take a look here in the chat. I think it's kind of funny. Every once in a while, I'll run into somebody in the chat room who's like, I can't believe Kerry doesn't read manuals for this stuff. He just goes on air unprepared and starts, evaluating a computer he knows nothing about. Welcome to field service tech work. That's what you do for your living. Furthermore, I write the manuals. I think you'll find, and I know that sounds cocky, but if you look at Amazon and look up my name, I've written manuals, okay? So the best way to write music is to not listen to other people's music that could influence your thinking. Otherwise, you end up stealing somebody's music and you didn't realize it. Also, a lot of manuals are out of date, where when they wrote it, they never updated it. They didn't pay any employee to update the manual for the updates and the BIOS and things like that. Sometimes there's just little notes you've got to read and you've got to go find them. And then a lot of times the translations are very poor. So what's written doesn't make any sense. I read a line that said, never to press twice flexible. So I would much rather do self-discovery because that's what I'm paid to do anyway, right? I'm working on computers. I rarely see the same computer twice. So you have to be quick. The time you're spending reading manuals, you're losing money. And if your customers are waiting too long for you to get yourself educated, they're going to take their computer to somebody else who's actually working on it. So there are those who read about doing, and then there are those who do. So for me, I'm the person who writes the manuals, just so we're clear. And I can write them through my own experience and without influence. I can write them in a way I think is more universally understandable in plain English than trying to translate something that was phrased improperly or is just structurally wrong. That's harder for me to fix than for me to just come up with it on my own. So it always amuses me when I go, oh, that person doesn't get it. They might as well just shout out, I don't get it. Over my head, Carrie. It's a weird thing to shout out, but you know, to each their own. Let me see. Let me go back over to full screen so I can see what's happening here. Is this waiting on a restart? What's this waiting on? It was waiting on me to click install. Okay. What else? What else is in the chat room? Shane Perkins says, example, ROM hard drive. Yeah, it doesn't say hard drive or solid state drive. This computer, an Ace Magician and Camrui do this on all their listings. They call storage ROM. ROM is a form of storage, but there's no ROM on this computer or any computer Ace Magician or Camrui has ever made, as far as I know. You also have something called a worm. A worm would be like a CD or a DVD or a Blu-ray. That is, it stands for write once, read many. Read-only memory is basically, remember Atari cartridges or Nintendo cartridges? Those are read-only memory. You cannot rewrite to those. I haven't seen anything with ROM. Like a BIOS is not ROM. A BIOS is, well, it's an EEPROM essentially. It's an extensible, programmable, read-only memory. Or at least they used to be. Back in the day, they had that little window on them that you could shine a blue light into. Anyway, it's all technical mumbo-jumbo, and it doesn't really apply much these days. But it amuses me that there's a massive translation problem where this stuff is made in Asia, and they're trying to build it for an American market. And sometimes they get the marketing completely wrong. They try to emulate an American marketing style, and people find it often laughable. You can search with Google or whatever search engine about funny Asian signs or funny Chinese signs, where people have walked through areas of, in particular China, and have seen really funny, you know, it'll say whatever it says in Cantonese or Mandarin, and then below it will be the English translation. Oh, they're so hilarious. There's one like a bumper sticker, and it said, I love you, so please don't treat me like potato. I don't know what that means. And of course, I think of like, you know, going back, this has always been the case. All your base are belong to us. Just stuff like that. Just really bad translation. That's been going on, as far as I can remember, at least 40 years, 35 years. Whenever that all your base are belong to us got really super popular. Yeah. And I'll never forget those cooler instructions for the CPU that said, never to press twice flexible. It's crazy. But if you want a good laugh, there's some great pictures of signs in China with really terrible English translations. It's hilarious. Starshine said, I can recommend Winero Tweaker for some of the headaches in Windows 11. I try to stay away from any system utilities, third-party system utilities. As an end user, if that's something you want to use, go right ahead, but I will not recommend it. I will not endorse it. I will not condone it. I don't want to support it. I don't want somebody calling me with some weird Windows problem that doesn't make any sense and come to find out they use some advanced tweaker software to make some change that is not normally changeable, and I'm stumped. So If you want to use those third-party utility softwares to change your start menu and to tweak your windows, you go ahead. But when it breaks, or when something is confusing you and something's missing or isn't working, there's not much people are going to be able to do to help you unless you specifically can tell them it happened as a result of using your system utility, third-party system utility. And the problem with that is most people don't know that's what it is, or they wouldn't have been asking for help. They would have just undone it. And sometimes you won't know for weeks or months later. And you may have only used the utility once 6 months ago, and now you bought some new printer and it won't connect any. You're like, why isn't this printer connecting? And nobody knows you used this tweaker months ago, and you forgot you used it, and the problem doesn't make any sense. And the only solution is to reinstall Windows, and then everybody says, well, it's terrible. Windows is so terrible, I have to keep reinstalling it for stuff to work. When you've just left it alone, you probably would have been fine. You did it to yourself. So as a tech, it drives me crazy that people make unnecessary changes to their operating system because I like this on the left and I like this on the right, and Windows doesn't allow you to do that. So they find some utility from some third party that is basically a kludge to make it work. But then there can be side effects to that, or negative consequences after an update that happens months later. It's like if you don't use the system in the way that Microsoft offers you, you can have unintended consequences in the future that are going to be very hard for a technician or for anybody to help you with without knowing you ran that stuff months before. So in general, if you want to do that, have fun. And when you have a problem later, have fun. And when you have to reinstall Windows, don't blame Microsoft. You did that. So my best advice, if you want a reliable computer, something that works, use the utilities in Windows to do it. The other problem is if you're a technician and you have essentially set these crutches up. I want my start menu to look like Windows 7. I want to put everything back in time so it looks like it's 10 years old. Have fun, do that. But the problem is you're handicapping yourself, because now you have these virtual crutches and you're not using your legs anymore. And all the muscles in your legs, in this example, to take this analogy a step further, they're going to atrophy and you won't be able to stand without the crutches. So the minute you go work on somebody else's computer that has a normal install of Windows 11, you don't know what you're doing. You're like, where did the start menu go? Where's my this and where's my that? You're useless as a technician if you have handicapped yourself to stay in the past. But if you're an end user and you're not working on anybody else's computer and you want to handicap yourself and have crutches and stay in the past, have at it, my friend. But I'm not going to endorse that. I'm not going to condone it. I just don't see what good comes of it, because sooner or later, there will be an operating system where that's not going to be an option for you. And now your learning curve is going to be much steeper than everybody else's. You just made it much harder on yourself to catch up. So I just don't get that, but I'm also not of the mindset of a consumer. I'm trying to save people money. I want people to have reliability and uptime and enjoy using their computer. And if you want to tweak it and stuff because it's educational and enjoyable, and damn be the consequences, don't let me get in your way. But I certainly want people to understand what potential results from that. Even though there's nothing wrong with the software, it's not like it's a virus or spyware. It's not like that. It's just that there can be unintended, what's the word I want? Indirect consequences. In other words, sometimes you click on something and you immediately get a consequence. Other times you click on something and there's no consequence for months. So it's not a direct consequence, it's an indirect consequence. Because you did that months ago, now this new thing you're doing isn't working. And it's very hard to associate those two things when they're so far apart to figure out what's wrong. And so the immediate thing that everybody comes to, generally speaking, is it's this crappy Windows operating system. But no, it's the end user 8 times out of 10. Yeah, it's the end user that created their own problem because they thought they could outsmart it. and then they ended up paying a price for it, which could be calling somebody like me to fix it because nobody they talk to seems to understand it. And they don't necessarily want to do a reinstall because nobody ever wants to do a reinstall. They don't want to reinstall all my programs. I don't have them anymore. I don't want to do it. And so I get these calls and it keeps me busy. So you think I would just encourage everybody to use them. But again, I'm a terrible businessman and that's just not how I want to earn my living. I want people to not have to call me. I want to go out of business because everybody's following my advice and their systems are reliable and they just don't need me. But it does hinder your ability to learn what not to do if you don't do anything at all. Failure is doing something. So everybody's got to decide on their own, but do know there can be unintended consequences, much more so statistically speaking, from people who do that than those who don't. Okay. What am I doing? Are we installed? I think we're installed. We'll reboot that. Frank says, restart your computer. Thanks, Frank. I just saw that. Carrie is in business and business is slow to upgrade. The opposite. I'm the first to upgrade. When you're talking about Windows 11, I think. When you talk about hardware, I'm generally the first person, one of the first to get the latest hardware. I was installing Wi-Fi in the mid-90s. So that's long before most people even understood what it was. But when it comes to installing an operating system, it's like getting your heart and lungs replaced. It's not something to be taken lightly if you're in business, unless there's a return on investment where you're going to see, as a result of this, now we're going to be able to make more money. Otherwise, it's a hobbyist activity, and it's something that businesses will ease into in order to ensure compatibility and in order to ensure that they have time to train their employees. And all this costs thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars between the IT department, labor to deploy, and then the training that's required, and then any replacement hardware or software that isn't compatible. So there has to be a lot of testing and a lot of evaluating that has to be done. Or you potentially bring your system down. So it's not to be taken lightly. Now, home users, doesn't matter. Home user has their system down and they're crying because they can't play solitaire. That's less and less because more and more home users, they're using their smartphones and their tablets because they're just consumers. And if you're not creating anything and you're not a gamer, and I mean a gamer in the sense of PC games, you don't need a computer. It's just a lot of maintenance. It takes up space. Most consumers are fine with their phones and their tablets to consume. They play Candy Crush, they do their email, they go to Pinterest, they watch YouTube videos, and there's nothing wrong with that. But do realize that all those things you're consuming, nearly everything you consume on your tablet or your smartphone was all created on a PC. So PCs aren't going anywhere. The money is not in the consumers. Consumers, they don't matter. Not in IT. IT, it's all in business. Business is where everything's happening. Business is where the work is. And business is what's going to give you a career. Consumers aren't going to give you a career. They might give you a career for a little while, but they're fickle and what they want keeps changing. So it's maddening and frustrating because the target keeps moving. In business, the target always stays in one place, which is we want to be secure and we want to be profitable. And in order to maintain those two things, you can't spend more than you make. But as long as they're making money, then they can spend money to keep making money. They're incentivized. Consumers, on the other hand, they only want to spend their money for for things they absolutely need, like electricity and food, and then silly things they want, but are completely unnecessary, like subscriptions to streaming services and other forms of entertainment that, generally speaking, businesses don't spend any money on except on occasion for office parties or, very rare occasions do businesses spend money on entertainment. Generally, everything is justifiable with a return on investment and their investment is usually into hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. It's not a trinket. It's big scale. So there's no, and not that you implied a negative connotation, but there's so much more at risk for businesses. And you will realize that as a consumer, if you went into the grocery store and you gathered all your groceries in your cart and they said, I'm sorry, we can't ring anybody up, our system's down, we upgraded to Windows 11, it's not working, all the registers are down, but we'll have them up soon, the tech's on his way. Are you gonna wait, or are you just simply gonna go to the competition and do your shopping again? See what I'm saying? Like suddenly when it affects you, you won't tolerate it. Well, businesses, as much as it's an inconvenience to you, you didn't lose any money. Businesses are losing hundreds, if not thousands of dollars every minute their system is down. So you think you're upset. You can just imagine what's going on in management and the phones that are ringing and the screaming that's being done. Get this back up now, or you can find another job. So it can be very stressful. So yeah, we don't just jump into things like that. And like I say, for good reason, very good reason. Okay. And again, not that you implied anything otherwise, but I could certainly see that somebody reading that might imply from what you said that that's somehow a negative thing. And it's not. It's a very positive thing. And most consumers would be wise to follow business practices, but business practices would not be wise to follow consumer practices. It doesn't work the other way. So, it just depends what your scale is and what you've got to lose. Sarge Tech says, human nature is going to keep me in business. It has so far. That's true. Eventually, it should offer us 22H2, and it hasn't done that yet. It'll probably do it tomorrow. And like I said, I could force it. I just want to get through this round of updates. I'm kind of curious if the Windows security issue is going to be fixed once these updates are done. Because it's bothered me. That's a very important thing, is that the Windows security icon down there in the system tray needs to be happy. I won't do anything with the computer until that is satisfied first. Brian Henry says he bought a Minisforum Desk Mini UM350. He's had it for a year and it's great. You just make sure you clean the dust out of it. Good tip. And you shouldn't have to open it to clean the dust out of it. You should be able to blow air through the vents and it should just all come right out. If you want to open it and do it that way, it's more thorough, but not necessary. Bob R says, Kerry, will I be using this PC for my own use? I will not. It's, if I'm going to have a PC here on the bench that I can refer to during live streams, like instead of doing the Windows capture thing I'm doing, it's a hassle for me to do the Windows capture because like when I download a BIOS and I'm capturing the browser page, the minute I have to open up in Windows Explorer or File Explorer, I'm not capturing that window. So then I have to go back into OBS and change it again. Now, if I just took the output of a desktop computer and did everything, going to the BIOS and downloading it on the desktop computer, then I'm capturing the entire screen. And I don't have to worry about any confidential information being accidentally exposed if I capture my whole screen. Not that there's much of anything on there, but there's projects and things I'm working on that I prefer to keep my cards close to my chest so people don't know what's coming. And I would prefer that computer to be much faster than what this is. Much faster in the sense of updates. Browsing the internet's going to be the same speed, But this kind of stuff, waiting for it to update, that's got to be done monthly. I will not use this computer myself My needs are beyond that. If I was going to use this computer, I would use it as a home theater PC. I'd put it onto a non-smart TV. I have an old Sony Bravia that somebody was throwing away, and I was at somebody's house and their power supply died, and I replaced it. And they said, oh, that's fixed. You know, I diagnosed it, replaced it, it's all working. They said, what do we owe you? And as we were discussing that and they were getting their checkbook out, there was a big flat screen TV by the door next to a dresser. And I said, are you moving? And they said, oh no, we got a new TV because this old TV doesn't have Netflix and stuff on it. I mean, they could have bought a Fire Stick from Amazon, but whatever. And it's heavy, it's really heavy. But it's still a flat screen. And probably HD, not 4K. I don't watch 4K, so it doesn't matter. And they said, oh, we're trying to get rid of it. Oh? And they say, yeah, we're trying to get rid of this dresser. I bought it at an antique store and I really don't have any room for it. It's a beautiful dresser. And I thought, over at Studio B, I don't want to spend any money on furniture. So if I can just get that little dresser, put the TV on it, and I'll put it in the bedroom, and I'll have TV in the bedroom. There's no TV service here, but I'll get a Fire Stick, which I did, and hook it up to the Wi-Fi, and I'm good to go. So I said, if you want to give me that dresser and that TV, you don't have to write me a check for anything. And they said, are you sure? I said, that's a deal. Are you kidding me? And you don't have to lift it. This is older people, older retired people. I said, it's good exercise for me. So I picked up the dresser and I put it in the van, and I picked up the TV, and this is when I had a van, and I put it in the van and I said, thank you for the deal. And they said, thank you for the deal. And then I took the dresser and put it in the bedroom here at Studio B, and I put the big Sony Bravia TV up there. Whew, that really should have two people to lift it, you know, but I'm a tough guy. And it's been working great ever since. You know, all I did was change a power supply, which was nothing for me. Of course, they didn't know what was wrong. Not only did I know what was wrong, I had the part to switch out. They were ecstatic. They're like, thank you for getting this junk out of our house. I'm like, thank you. I didn't want to have to buy a dresser and a TV and, you know, end up having to move it or whatever. When I get kicked out of Studio B, then I could take it or not take it. It won't matter because it didn't cost me anything. But it's not a smart TV. So if I put a little HTPC up there, that's way better than an Amazon Fire Stick. Like if I'm trying to play an encoded X265 video, it stutters, it's bad. But if I do that through a PC, it'll play smooth. It's not a Wi-Fi problem. It's the processor on the 4K Fire Stick isn't good enough to decode H265, at least not for me. So if I were going to use a mini PC like this, I would still want it to have more power. Once again, because the updates take a while. And I wouldn't use it very often. I don't watch TV very much. Twice a month or something, I might fire it up. So yeah, so these are sent to me and I review them. And then generally I hold on to them so that I can update the reviews in a few months. And then, you know, after that, then they'll probably be given away or donated or something. Yeah. That's the plan. Let's see, is this thing, what's this thing doing? Go full screen because I still can't. It seems to be stuck on this particular download for some reason. Well, I'll tell you what, while we're waiting on that, I'm going to just close this and I'm going to grab my utilities flash drive and I want to see how fast the internal storage is on this. I imagine it's probably SATA speeds, you know, probably around 500 megabytes per second. If it's anything better than that, I'll be pleasantly surprised. And then what else do we want? I will put VLC on this, so we'll drag this out. And I'll put my optimizer on there. And my optimizer doesn't do anything that's not essentially Microsoft sanctioned. So we're not doing anything kludgy with it, unlike some of those other system utilities. Everything my optimizer does, you can do by hand. And then if we look at, we could look at the temperatures of this system, see how hot it's getting. It's not a very fast processor, so I can't imagine it's going to be very warm. Again, unless we're blocking the air vents. And then crystal disk mark is the main reason I went in here, and we're going to grab that. And while it's not necessarily fair to run crystal disk mark while it's downloading updates in the background, I would like to get this done sometime today. So, oh, and I'm on the D drive. I never pay attention to this, really. I have to wait for it to stop. As long as it says stop here, it's running. So when it's not running, it converts to, now it changes the word stop to each testing type of test. I want to select the C drive here. And then I'll hit all tests, and we'll take a look at what sort of numbers we're getting from this very inexpensive, very affordable entry-level PC with Windows 11 Pro. So while that's running, and it'll take a minute. Oh, well, yeah, we're at SATA speeds, 528. About 550, 560 is the maximum on SATA 3. So pretty much it falls where I expect it to. Let's see, what else do we have? Craig says I can set the power plan to performance to speed up things. Yeah, I could probably go in the BIOS and crank the voltage up to the CPU. But I'm just going to leave that for right now. If an update's taking a long time, my advice to you is to do something else. Don't interrupt the update, or do the update later. And, before you go to bed, set it to update, turn your monitor off, but leave the computer on, and then go to bed. If you wake up in the morning and the update hasn't finished, something's wrong. The good news is with Windows 10 and Windows 11, after about 2-3 days, it's smart enough to know that that update's not working, and it'll sort of put it off to the side and automatically more or less fixes itself. But if you're somebody like me who wants it done now, bring a sandwich. Gary Tatum says, Carrie, I got my HP Mini from eBay up and running with Ubuntu server spun up, Jellyfin, and Docker, and Cockpit. I took your advice, though, and I'm keeping everything local. It's a great hobby for an old man like me. Hey, that's awesome. And like I say, those little HP 1-liter PCs, those 1L PCs, they're built like a tank. I'm very, very impressed with them. When HP does stuff for businesses, they do it right. There's also Dell has mini PCs, and Lenovo has mini PCs. They're all, if you Google 1L, mini PC, Dell, Lenovo, HP, you'll see. And they're regularly modern versions running 10th gen, 11th gen, 12th gen processors, routinely sell new for $1,500 to $2,300 for each one. And they're rock solid, super easy to work on, mostly. Lenovo's got one that's a little wonky, but Lenovo also has them where they're super easy. There's also a cheaper line. Dell's got a cheaper line that kind of look the same on the outside, but they don't have as much expandability on the inside. There's a great YouTube channel. In fact, you know what? We can do that while we're waiting here. The score on that, and I'm only interested in those two top scores, 538 maximum sequential read speed, 482 maximum sequential write speed is the best performance under ideal circumstances you're going to get from that internal drive. And I think that's wonderful. I think it's great. So let's do this. Let's go to, let's see, full screen. And I think I'll stop the rest of these tests. Well, we'll let it finish because some of you might be interested in these other tests. But again, this isn't a machine designed to race it. It's not designed to benchmark it for, achieving world record speeds unless you're considering price. I mean, nothing bothers me more than watching somebody compare mini PCs but they don't mention the price between them. They only talk about the performance. Well, this one's faster than that one. Okay, but what's the price difference? You know, they'll oh, I bought this cheap one off AliExpress. Well, great, what's your warranty? How are you ever going to get support for that? What if it breaks? What are you going to do? Oh, well, everybody knows you can't send it back. No, everybody doesn't know that. You're not making it clear in your video. You're making it out like that's such a great deal, but at what cost? And then you're telling me this machine is faster than that machine. They look identical, but you haven't mentioned the price. So therefore, one could conclude these all cost the same. They all have the same support because you haven't said otherwise. It's a massive disservice to their viewers. Please be aware when you're watching the review videos and the comparison videos. What's the warranty? What's the price of each product? All they're doing is they're looking at the numbers and they say, this one's got better numbers. Well, I'll bet you that one has a higher price. I'll bet you. Oh, wait a minute. You're telling me if I spend more, I'm going to get more? Well, somebody should make a video reviewing it then. I'm sorry, I cracked myself up. It should be fairly obvious to everybody. All right, let's go to YouTube. I'm going to show you some of my favorite YouTube channels because I watch YouTube more than I watch TV. That's my thing now. Your browser's been updated. Oh, goody. Let's close it and reopen it again because I can't be bothered to close the tabs. All right, let's see. We're going to go to YouTube. Oh, here we go. I'm used to having it buffer. Let's see. I'm going to go up here. And everything that's popping up on YouTube is just under no account, basically a computer that's never been used before. So there's no cached preferences or anything. So this is a very pure example. And I realize my video is going to be blocking part of the screen. So that's all right. I don't think it's going to get in the way. We'll find out. Okay, so you guys want to get to know me a little better. You know, there's a side to me you probably don't know. And that is I enjoy reaction videos to music. And I enjoy business class review videos. So there is there's a YouTube channel called Serve the Home. I love Serve the Home. Serve the Home. And tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to get rid of my camera because I think it is actually going to get in the way of this. And I don't want to think about it. So you should still be able to hear me. But if you're interested in business class hardware and reviews, like here he's reviewing one of the 1 liter PCs. He calls it Project Tiny Mini Micro because I think Dell calls them tiny, HP calls them mini, and Lenovo calls them micro. So he just crammed all three together, Tiny Mini Micro. And then there's a new Ryzen server that he's excited about. The new Nook 12 he's excited about, but he's also excited about 2.5 gig Ethernet switches, mega servers. How about a $17,000 CPU? I don't know who's financing this guy, but he seems to be about my age. He's obviously in the industry at a corporate level. There's the Dell version of the mini PC. This is a great channel. I really like this channel for keeping me on track with the stuff that I think matters, not RGB, not liquid cooling. Although there's some liquid cooling in servers and such, but it's way, way different. Here he's reviewing some of the same things I've reviewed here. All right, so there's that one. And then who else do I like? I like the Lock-Picking Lawyer. This guy is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. He can pretty much crack any lock and show you how to do it. Padlock, door, business door, any kind of a lock. And he can demonstrate it in a very easy way to understand, and he sells the tools he uses on his website. Now, if you are pulled over by the police and you have burglary tools in your car, these would be considered burglary tools. You could be in trouble for that. In some states, require you to have a locksmith license before you can buy equipment. So it's up to you to know if you're breaking the law or not by buying his stuff. Of course, that never stops anybody from going on eBay and buying stuff. But things like bump keys and if you're at all paranoid about anybody breaking into your house, do not watch any of these videos, because you're going to see how easy it is no matter what kind of lock you have. It is shockingly simple. And certainly he makes it look that way because he's very, very experienced. However, some of it you don't need any experience at all, like bump keys. They're super easy. And then he's even got little shims that on some padlocks, you slide the shims in and the lock just opens. And brand new locks that are being sold today. So this is fascinating. I'm an engineering guy. I like to see how stuff works. And I love the terminology about, the shackle and the tumblers. I love all the terminology in locks that I never could describe before. And I'm learning it by watching him. Handcuffs are incredibly simple to open. Not that you should, even if you can. It's not a good idea if you're in the back of a police car to unshackle your handcuffs to impress the police officers. They will not be impressed. Best to keep that to yourself. And again, he's got a bunch of lock-picking tools that he sells. So that's one of my favorites. I also like a web, I'm going to keep calling it a web. Daily Dose of the Internet is something I watch regularly. It's a great way to see all the viral stuff without missing out. Well, I'm sure there's viral stuff I'm missing out on, but he covers a lot of it regularly, and it's just fantastic. I also enjoy watching boy, doing this off the top of my head, I'm used to seeing a list, that comes to me automatically. I enjoy watching live Windows training with Doug Betts. If you're familiar with the channel, we've had Doug on a number of times. Doug's got a much smaller channel that I think deserves far more views than he's getting, and I'm sure he'll get there in time. You'll see he's up to show 186 here, and he's very much interactive with his audience. He very rarely does a show without an audience. And you will see the regular people showing up over and over and over again because there's so few people. But he helps people live solve a problem and shows the process of doing it. And he's been in the business over 30 years like me. He's the guy that bought the Big Beast build, and that's what's behind him that he's streaming with. And yeah, show the love there for Doug Betts. Let's see, who else do we have? I love cooking with Mama Gina. That channel is called Bon Appetiti. If I could spell it. There she is. B-U-O-N. Anyway, you get it close like I did in the YouTube search. This woman is amazing. She's an Italian immigrant, like a first-generation Italian immigrant living on the East Coast here in the U.S. And she's cooking everything the way she was taught when she was a little girl growing up in Italy, or even a young woman in Italy, and cooking for a very large family. So this is all very traditional Italian food being cooked without the rubber gloves. She's got her hands in there, and she is cooking the way an Italian grandmother should cook, in my opinion. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'm a picky eater, and there's a lot of stuff I won't eat, regardless if she cooks it or not. What is this? Chickpeas? You can have those. But there's a lot of stuff she does cook that I'm like, I wish she lived closer, because I'd take some of those breadsticks. And she bottles tomato sauce. And sometimes she can be a little difficult to understand. Her accent's very thick. And sometimes she slips into Italian when she talks, but her family members that film this and edit it and do all the work, they do a wonderful job. And I actually sent her, a number of years ago, I was so impressed with her, I sent her my old Sony wireless microphone because I was having a hard time hearing her. I said, here, have this $600 microphone. You can have it. And I sent it to their P.O. box. And every year she sends me a Christmas card. She's such a nice person. And she also, oftentimes you'll see her get dressed up for her videos, which I think is very old school. Because, you know, for that generation, you know, being on TV or whatever, you get dressed up. For me, you know, not such a big deal. But, you know, you can see here she's canning. Look how many cans of tomato sauce. When she cans a lot. And then she gets the tape with the date and puts it on there. And, you know, obviously she's not doing this to sell it. She's doing it to feed her family. And she doesn't want to do it every day. So when she does it, she does a lot of it, and it'll last for months. And I love the authenticity. I love there's no preservatives and unnatural ingredients. It's all very real. I'm sorry, my mouth is watering just looking at this. And she does have a cookbook on Amazon, Cooking with Mama Gina. Buy the book, support her. She's amazing. When I met her, she had fewer subscribers than me, and now she's way ahead of me. And you know what? She deserves it. That's nothing. I expect that's probably going to double in the next year. The cooking like that, just where do you find that anymore? Who else do I enjoy? So I enjoy reaction videos. So there's a couple of big ones, especially if we're talking about music videos like, I don't know, NXS from the 80s. You'll see these folks, they're very popular if you're into reaction videos, Rob Squad Productions. And sometimes you'll see vocal coaches. So Rob Squad, boy, oh boy, they really have that search engine optimized, don't they? There's another couple called Brad and Lisa. Is that right? No, Brad and Lex. And Brad and Lex remind me a lot of Rob Squad in a lot of ways. But they review or react to a lot of music that I like. So I really enjoy watching those if I want to see somebody listen to a song for the first time from the 1980s that they've never heard before and see if they get it. You know, I just think that's a lot of fun. And then, you know, there'll be, there's some young girls that look like they're having fun, and I wish that I was that age and I could have been doing it, called Dana's Faith. And it's cute because they're so young, you know, and they look so young to me. I guess I'm getting old because they look like they're not even teenagers. I'm sure they must be teenagers. And they listen to a lot of different stuff. And I'm just so thrilled to see how open-minded they are about old people's music, you know, from what would have been my perspective at that age. And I'm just amused by it. I also stumbled onto this young man building computers. What's his name? Kenny? Where is he? He doesn't have very many subscribers, and he's young, but a lot of young people lack the confidence to put themselves out there and do what he's doing. And of course, because he's not that big of a channel, it's a little difficult to find. Did he have an E in his name? Was it Kenny like that? Oh man, where did he go? Trying to think what the search words would be. He doesn't have a lot of content, but I want to show him some support and encourage him, because you can see he's going somewhere, right? If he keeps that up, it won't take him long. And he's working on his own money, so he doesn't have a lot of money to spend. I didn't have much money to spend. Hey, there's Network Chuck. I enjoy watching Network Chuck. If you want a taste of business level stuff that you can do at home, he covers a lot of that. And it's very heavily edited, scripted. It's very, very good. The guy loves his coffee and he talks a million miles an hour. You think I talk fast? Holy cow. This guy throws information at you and it's nonstop and it's wonderful. I love it. What else? Where is... I'm going to find this kid. Bitwit. Yeah, you got to love Bitwit. He's hilarious. They're very knowledgeable. I can't find him. I'll have to look it up and add it to the show notes later. I stumbled on it last night or the night before. I was very impressed. You know, he doesn't have a microphone. He doesn't have, you know, a big budget. And he's putting himself out there, which is, you know, opening him up to who knows what potential bullying at school, right? Because, you know, heaven forbid he's doing something the other kids aren't doing. And I'm just imagining, I don't know, but I know that would have happened to me if I did it. So I want to show him some love and support. Let me take a break from this for a minute and just see what's going on in the chat here. Patrick says you have to still dismiss that security warning even after turning that setting on. I don't recall having to do that on other computers, but I've not. It's the way you get familiar with something is you use it over and over and over. And I'm using Windows 11 more now than I've been using it in the past, but not as much as I've been using Windows 10. So I'm much more fluent in Windows 10 because I've had years to keep repeating the same actions in it. So I may not remember things the same on Windows 11 yet because of my limited experience with it, but that will change as it was once true of Windows 10 and Windows 7 before it, etc., etc. John Lewis says, Carrie, your advice to have patience with Windows has saved me twice this week. Let's go full screen on this. I'll come back to the other YouTube squirreling here. Your advice to have patience with Windows has saved me twice this week. Program incompatibility with core isolation memory integrity was having an issue with a driver. 2 days later, the driver. Okay. What? I think I know what you mean. Don't watch She-Hulk. That got bad reviews. I don't choose to watch something based on reviews because it's not costing me any money, but just the title alone, She-Hulk, and she's a lawyer and she's a Hulk. You know what? I just can't get on board with it. I think I'm just too old for finding that relatable. What's the other one? There's a new Batman, and it's all like it's supposed to be the children of Batman and the Joker, and they're all basically the same as their parents. It looks incredibly stupid. But I also know I watched incredibly stupid things when I was younger that there's no way I want to watch today. I mean, I spent hours watching Speed Racer, Johnny Sacco and his flying robot, Ultraman, and they're terrible. They're so unbelievably awful. Never mind the terrible special effects. They did the best they could with what they had. That's not the problem. The problem is the stories are so stupid. But in many of these, the kid is the hero. Speed Racer's a kid. Johnny Sacco's a kid. There's kids that are wearing uniforms that are being put in harm's way in battles in Ultraman. That would never happen. But as a kid, right, you're like, oh, there's a kid like me, and that kid's saving the day. I like this. As an adult, I look at it and go, that's really stupid and irresponsible. Never mind the special effects. It's a terrible script. But, you know, I imagine kids would be watching other kids and shows and feel that those are good because they're relatable, right? Gerald says, I was told Celeron stands for sell it. This is still true. Again, there's some people who are just elitist, right? And if they want to be elitist and you want to join them in being an elitist, have at it. But do at least admit what you are. Don't pretend to be like you're better than anybody else without admitting you're being an elitist. If a Celeron's not good enough for you, that's acceptable, right? But it doesn't mean it's not good enough for anybody. That's just pompous. And it's also very discourteous and disrespectful. So they don't make a Celeron anymore. Pentium and Celeron names have been retired currently, and they refer to it as the letter N. So if you see that the processor is an N followed by some numbers, that is the replacement brand name for Celeron and Pentium. But it's still just a name. Sherry McFarland said, I bought one of those refurbished Dell small form factor PCs for my children. They've grown up and moved out. So I gave it to a friend and it's still in use. That's what I'm saying. They're built like tanks. The business class machines, yeah. Craig wants to know if I ever run winget upgrade command can show updates for, oh, winget. Sorry, winget. No, I don't. I basically want to emulate the way the customers use the computers. I don't want to run tech commands on a computer to get it to do something that it's not doing automatically. I need the computer to run the way the customer's going to use it because they're going to call me for support otherwise. So it's a way of preventing the support call. That's why I don't do that stuff. Would an Amazon Fire TV stick work if plugged into a computer? No, because it's a video output, and your computer is a video output. You'd need a video capture device for that to work. John Famlor says, that's exactly who I was about to suggest to serve the home. He is fantastic. Yeah, Patrick does an amazing job. Very, very good job. Again, these videos cost a lot of money to produce. He has half the subscribers I have. Plus, they have a website with articles. I don't know who's financing all of this, but I can tell you it's not coming from YouTube. There's not enough money there. So I know he has paid subscribers, and that helps pay for some of the equipment, but he's the amount of time and budget that's got to take is got to be 6 or 8 times more than he's making from YouTube and subscriber memberships. So somebody in the background is financing all this. And I don't see any way to reach out to him. They basically say, if you want to talk to us, go to our forums. And he keeps saying us. So I don't know if he's working full-time as an administrative tech and he does this on the side, or is this being financed in some way by a larger corporation. I can't make heads or tails of how this is getting paid for. Is this a one-man operation? Is he doing his own lighting and his own camera work and his own editing? I don't know. Sarge Tech says, Kerry also likes running on empty, report of the week. Yeah, review bra. I'll get to that. Thank you for reminding me. I don't watch him that often, but from time to time. Kerry, John Wilson wants to know, have I tried Ron Pratt's channel yet? It doesn't ring a bell. Sarge Tech says, my multi-lock can't be bumped. Back to the lock-picking lawyer. There are different techniques to different types of locks. Not every lock can be can be bumped. But whatever kind of lock you have, look it up on his channel. He can pick, as far as I can tell, every single lock ever made. He's never, as far as I know, had an unpickable lock. So no matter what kind of lock you've got, don't be too confident, because there are other ways to pick a lock that might be just as easy if you know how, or they might require a bit of lock picking experience and skill, but are easy to the lock pick. So again, if you're somebody who's really sensitive about that, then this knowledge is toxic to you. You're better off not knowing. But just because a particular lock picking technique doesn't work on your lock doesn't make it any safer. Brian Henry says, my daughter and I built her a computer for Christmas and loved it. We might build a 486 MS-DOS machine for a bit more challenge for her. Sure, why not? Gary Tatum says, did you check out Mr. Video reacting to Billy Idol's Rebel Yell? I haven't yet, but he is fantastic. I love Mr. Video. I love it. Let me go back to, let's go back to the screen here. And let's do this while it's on my mind. First was Report of the Week. This is food reviews. This guy's fantastic. He wears a suit that's about 2 times too big. I think he's in his mid-20s. Very genuine and very honest and very sarcastic. The sarcasm is delivered in such a way that if you're not listening, you're missing the joke. He doesn't change his tone. So you really have to listen to what he's saying, and you have to know that he is intentionally being funny. And it's hilarious. He's very, very good at it. I love his sarcasm. I just think it's awesome because he does it in a way, there's no tonal change in his voice. So it's coming across very matter of fact, like everything else he's saying, and you must pay attention or it goes right by. I love details. And then if we look up Mr. Video, this guy, oh, he is so good. Mr. Video. Now, in particular, like his video shorts and stuff I'm not into, but I really like his reaction videos. So when you go to a YouTube channel like this and you click on videos and you're looking for something specific, there's a little magnifying glass and we can just type the word reaction and that should separate out his non-reaction stuff. Now, one of the ones that I really enjoyed was Mr. Video doing a reaction to the Gorillaz song called Dare. And, you know, I want to be careful. I don't want to give myself a copyright violation, but he's very animated and he is hilarious. It's not safe for work. Some of his language is a little rough, but he's hilarious. And his reactions seem very real. They don't seem contrived or faked. And yeah, I think he's out of Chicago. This guy is fantastic. He's a great entertainer. All right, what else was I going to look up? There was a few more here. There's a guy called Reacting to Reactors Reacting. This guy's fantastic. This guy is very, very passionate. Right here, Reacting to Reactors Reacting. And as much as our good friend Mitch Morrison loves the band Toto, well, this guy loves Level 42. So if we type in the word Level 42, look how many videos he's got about this band Level 42. He loves this band. And when a big reactor, you know, somebody who's got a big following, finally reacted to something about you, he wanted to share that with his audience. And he had a box of Kleenex to wipe the tears away from his eyes, that he was so happy that even though this is not Level 42's best song, it was their most popular. And now it's being introduced to, you know, 18, 19,000 young people potentially that have never heard the song before. So, you know, the band members are in their 50s and 60s. They're not going to live forever. But now their music gets reintroduced from these reaction videos to a whole generation that never heard it and can continue to love that song. So if we look at, here he's talking about reacting to how reaction videos are being done. Like some people, they don't react properly. They're very stoic, and it's like, what's the point, right? So when he saw this larger channel react, he was so happy because he thinks their reactions are genuine and accurate in what they're assessing from the music. And I think it was this guy here who's pretty popular that did it, that he was referring to, I think. Oh, we gotta watch an ad? Never mind. Anyway, the big reaction channels, like, was it JVTV? And there's another guy I really like. His name is Derek Reacts. He listens to a lot of the 80s synth pop that I like. This guy's fantastic because of the kind of music he's reviewing. So if we type in Derek Reacts and synth pop, there's a bunch of 80s music in here that I love. Bizarre Love Triangle by New Order, The Fix, Soft Cell, Yazoo, or Yaz, depending on what country you live in. It's Yaz in America, Yazoo in England, I think is how that worked. Kraftwerk, In Excess, Phil Collins. Anyway. Oh, Mr. Video did Yazoo as well. But Derek really seems to love music and really get into it. And there's also these two college guys. What's their channel? College Guys React or something. Yeah, and I love that the expression, like this guy's got great expressions when he's listening to the music. And his friend, I'm sorry I don't know their names, but this guy over here on the right, he just goes into some trance, which is fascinating to watch. Whereas this guy will be biting his lip and nodding his head. This guy just goes into like a weird, the guy on the right, the long hair, goes into some kind of weird trance. And it's fascinating to watch it. So if you watch them react to Jethro Tull, let's do Locomotive Breath. Watching them react to this warms my heart. That's just the facial expression, the fact that they've never heard this before, supposedly. And the music, it starts out very slow. And then suddenly the music ramps up and it starts to become very rock and roll. And you'll see the expressions, like he's smiling as it's bringing such joy. He's never heard it before. And then all of a sudden you'll see their head nodding becomes more aggressive because the rock and roll has started, you know. And it just brings me joy. I just enjoy seeing that, you know, vicariously through other people and remembering that I once felt that way the first time I heard that song too. So it's like you have sort of a bond with somebody you've never met. When they like something you like, nobody wants to hear, oh, you like that terrible artist, you like that terrible song. Nobody wants to hear that. People want to hear that you like it too, and we can share this thing that we like together. Right? That's what we're all doing here with computers, right? We're sharing the love of building computers together and evaluating these mini PCs and the technology. If somebody's not into that, and they just want to go, oh, you guys are a bunch of losers, I can't believe that's what you do, your reaction is going to be, get away from me. So there's this really unique attraction when birds of a feather sort of flock together, if you will. And for me, watching this younger generation, hearing these older songs for the first time that really I thought were fascinating and wonderful, if they would react to it and go, oh, that's terrible, you know, in some cases, that's fair. Okay, some of it in the 80s was pretty terrible, but it was terrible in a way that, if you get it, it was terrible in a way that was meant to be terrible. You know, there's a song called I Want to Be a Cowboy by Boys Don't Cry. It's a terrible song. There's a song called Da 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 by a German group called Trio. It's awful. It's supposed to be awful. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek twist against the man and society and conformity. And it's hilarious if you get it. And what's amazing to me is some of these young people who weren't brought up in that era, some of them get it. Some of them don't, but some of them do. And all that just makes me happy. I'm like, oh, there's hope. It's not like when I was growing up, my dad would listen to Elvis and Bobby Vinton and Bobby Darin. You know, he listened to Love Potion #9, and it just over and over and over and over again. And I hate that music. I hate it so much. If I never hear an Elvis song again for the rest of my life, it'll be a day too soon. So it's because it was a constant. My father did not really listen to modern music, maybe Hotel California, but anything beyond that he wasn't interested. He wanted to stay in the 1950s and just never left that box. So for me, it got tiring. And the music is flat. It's all mono. They hadn't invented stereo yet. It's not very dynamic. You don't really hear drums. It's kind of in the background, you know. But, you know, in the 80s, and they really took advantage of the stereophonic sound and synthesizers and electric guitars, that all started in the late 60s, and things got really poetic in the 1970s, more or less. And in the 80s, you know, we went from all this serious anti-war stuff and these sad ballads by people like Gilbert O'Sullivan, and I don't know, so much of it's so sad. But beautiful music, it's just sad. And then in the 80s, it was like a rebellious concept of let's just have fun and make songs that are nonsense because life is short and we should have fun, and there's no political message, there's no anti-war message, there's no message in the song other than she blinded me with science, or, you know, synth freestyle music, which was just a rhythm to get you dancing. So artists like Nancy Martinez and Expose and New Shoes, N-U-S-H-O-O-Z, New Shoes. The lyrics are meaningless. I mean, they have meaning. What you do understand what they're saying. They're not non sequiturs just to rhyme words. But they're meaningless in the sense that it's let's party, let's have fun. And you'd get a little bit of that from time to time on the radio. We'll hear Who Let the Dogs Out, or Let's Get This Party Started, or, you know, LMFAO will do lots of fun stuff like that. But the 80s was solidly, you know, that was a big piece of 80s music. And you still had your rock and roll bands like Foreigner and Styx and AC/DC, and a lot of these bands were carrying over from the 70s, the late 70s, that were still making music in the 80s. Billy Squier, great rock and roll music, by the way, that I think bands today have a hard time competing with, quite frankly. But I wonder if I'm biased, because that's what I grew up with. But then I go and watch these reaction videos and I get reaffirmed, no, those songs definitely had something that has staying power. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And then other songs have all been but forgotten. Songs that were momentarily on the charts, and they might have been culturally of the time, where kids today aren't necessarily going to get the references in the songs. And I think it's a shame when artists do that. When Eminem calls out specific celebrities in his music, a lot of kids today don't know who he's talking about. Maybe he's talking about Moby, or he's talking about, what's the guy's name, Durst? And he's having a beef with somebody, he's having an issue, and he's talking about it, and he's calling him out. Kids are like, who's he talking about? Doesn't mean anything. And if you go back and they did that in the 80s with a bunch of songs, you don't really hear Pac-Man Fever being played on the radio ever. You know, it's too cultural of the time, and it doesn't age well. But there weren't that many songs like that in the 80s. A lot of it still sounds great today. Everything Duran Duran did, I think, still sounds great. NXS, still musically, poetically amazing. And some of these kids grow up never hearing that music. So when they hear it for the first time and make a video on it and they like it, oh, that tickles me. So not everything I watch on YouTube is all computer related. Some of it's just for fun. Funny or Die is a fun site. Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis. I don't know if he's still doing it, but oh my gosh, it's so terrible. It's so terrible. And to see these big celebrities, whether it's Brad Pitt or Bradley Cooper or President Obama, endure his insulting questions right to their face. Jerry Seinfeld and people you think would never tolerate being talked to the way he talks to them. But they know what they signed up for. It's not really a surprise, and they just, you know, they get all ticked off and upset. But they're not really. They knew what they signed up for. And you're like, I can't believe he just said that to somebody. Oh my gosh. I find that level of humor so offensive. I love it. Like, if you can totally offend somebody, but you're doing it in a way that is intended not to bully them. But it looks like you're bullying them, but they know they're on board with it. It's not like punked. It's not like someone's being surprised. They pretend like they're surprised, but they're all in on it. That is so amazing to watch somebody that you think would never do that, would never tolerate that type of in-your-face insult. And yet they do. And it's just hilarious. It's those moments where you're like, I just can't believe he said that. Even though they're in on it, they don't necessarily know what he's going to say, but they know it's going to be brutal, and they agree to do it. And boy, oh boy, you know, sometimes they'll get upset and storm off, but it's all part of the act. It's hilarious. So I'll enjoy watching that. And, you know, those are more professional productions. There's a series called What If Google Was a Guy? Oh, gosh, those are hilarious. What If Google Was a Guy? If you haven't watched those, they're pretty old now, but oh, classic. I'm just looking in the chat to see what I'm missing here. Dom says, he's changing the subject, I heard they want to stop and put limits on AI, artificial intelligence, because it's too smart and it could cause harm to us. Well, the harm is in the ability to keep the reins on it, to keep it controlled. Because bots have the ability to learn at an amazing pace. You blink your eyes and it's 3 times smarter than it was before you blinked your eyes. It's that fast. And so you can create artificial intelligent bot swarms with very little computing power these days. And you can essentially flood a website with false information appearing to come from different people with completely different sentences. It's not just copy and pasting, all agreeing on something that isn't true, or can emulate a crowd of people and you can't tell the difference. It's completely impossible to tell for the most part, unless you're an expert. So what ends up happening is if you can't keep it under control and it starts taking over the content on the internet and we don't know what's real anymore, and it's so proliferate, it's everywhere, it becomes ubiquitous that now we can't tell real from fake. And it's gonna get worse. Like, that's just the beginning. So the idea is that when it's used properly, AI can be very useful, just like a screwdriver. And when it's used improperly, it can cause injury. So we want to, the people, generally speaking, they want to put some limits on it. And Elon Musk is very concerned, and I think rightfully so, that if we just let this be the Wild West and let companies do whatever they want and police themselves, it's not going to take very long for us to see a very ugly side of AI. And it's going to be very difficult to reel it back in. Once it's out, it's going to be difficult. So whatever damage it does is going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to be surreal. because you won't know if did that actually happen or was that all made up? And then when they tell you it was made up and in fact it was real, it's really going to put people in a bind. If you think telling what's real from what's fake is difficult now, just wait until AI swarms. When you have AI swarms and you can't tell them apart from real people and they're everywhere and people are everywhere, it all gets mashed into one big bowl and it's like, it's all the same. And all of a sudden now the only default is to never believe anybody ever. You're on your own. What a world that's going to be, right? Just don't believe anybody because you never know. That's where it's going to move to if they don't put some processes or rules in place to prevent it. And then you've got countries like China. You know, China doesn't like Elon Musk's Starlink because their citizens can theoretically bypass the government restrictions and have access to the internet. And if the government lets their people see what's going on and what they're really doing, they're likely going to have their own civil war. So China may start launching like 13,000 little satellites to block Starlink. And you know, these things are in an orbit around the Earth. So when they're blocking it for their country, they're blocking it for all countries. Great times we're living in, huh? You gotta love technology. And I'm sure Elon, you know, he's a bright guy. He'll figure out a way to undo it and they'll just figure out a way to redo it again and cat and mouse, cat and mouse, cat and mouse. But you gotta wonder what the motivation is behind a government to not want their citizens to have internet access that they're not firewalling. What kind of country do you live in? I mean, that in and of itself tells me all I need to know about China. That is disgusting and shameful. We could have a little fun with AI today. I've got the Bing application, Microsoft Bing, installed on my phone so I can use ChatGPT 4. And it just works automatically with Bing. You don't go to bing.com, you put the Bing app on your phone. And then you had to sign up for it. So what should I ask ChatGPT? I can ask it to tell me a story. I can ask it to tell me about me. I can ask it to literally whatever is on your imagination and on your mind, we can ask it and it will answer us. Unless it's something destructive or harmful, in which case it will not answer certain questions that it feels are hateful or encouraging violence or harmful things. James Prezi says, I missed his contribution. Oh no. I see that. $10 from James Prezi in Super Chat. He says, tomorrow starts the crazy work schedule as a baseball concessionaire supervisor, so I won't be around much to catch the live videos, but thank you for all you do. Love the content. Hey, gotta respect a guy who works. I think that's awesome. That's a great excuse. Go earn that money. John Wilson with a $20 super chat. Sorry, I missed that as well, John. He says, here's my late fee, and have you checked out? Oh, that was the Ron Pratt's channel. I missed the contribution, though. Thank you, John. And I will have to check that out. Okay. Have I seen the new Asus RTX 88U Pro? Oh, they have a Pro version now. No, I don't think I have. So asking ChatGPT who will be president in 2026 is not going to get you a prediction. It's going to tell you who's running. So just so you know, you're not going to get Zoltar responses. So yeah, so if you want to ask ChatGPT how to solve a programming problem. If you want to ask ChatGPT how to solve a math problem, how to solve a problem. We have 3 different ways for ChatGPT to give us answers. And if I bring up, I should have done this before I walked around the desk. We'll bring up OBS, and we'll come over here. All right, so that's the Bing application that's installed on my phone. And we say, we'll hit the microphone button. How do I fix a computer that is not turning on?
Searching for computer not turning on. There could be several reasons why your computer won't turn on. It could be a problem with the power supply or outlet, display issues, unusual BIOS settings, or malware. Here are some things you can try to fix it. Check if your computer is charging. Check if there are any loose cables. Check if your monitor is working. Disconnect non-essential devices. Check for beep codes. Troubleshoot the PC in safe mode. If none of these work, it might be best to take it to a professional for repair.
So we could ask it, we could tell it to be more creative with its answers, more balanced with its answers, or more precise with its answers. So if you want to have fun, then you would type more creative. And then you could tell it to tell you a story. And the story can be about anything at any length of detail that you choose to tell it to do. So I'm just thinking of tell me a funny story about a computer technician who makes YouTube videos and gets easily distracted.
Okay, here's a funny story I made up. There once was a computer technician named Dave who loved making YouTube videos about his work. He had a channel called Dave's Tech Tips, where he showed how to fix various computer problems, install new hardware, and troubleshoot common issues. He had a loyal fan base of fellow tech enthusiasts who enjoyed his informative and humorous videos. One day, Dave decided to make a video about how to upgrade the RAM on a laptop. He had a spare laptop that he wanted to use for the demonstration. He set up his camera, microphone, and lighting in his workshop and started recording. Hello everyone, welcome to Dave's Tech Tips. Today I'm going to show you how to upgrade the RAM on your laptop. This is a simple and cheap way to improve your laptop's performance and speed. All you need is a screwdriver, some anti-static gloves, and of course, some new RAM modules. Let's get started. Dave proceeded to explain the steps of opening the laptop case, locating the RAM slots, removing the old modules, and inserting the new ones. He was very detailed and clear in his instructions, and he made sure to add some jokes and anecdotes along the way. However, as he was about to finish the video, he noticed a notification on his phone. It was from his friend Mark, who had sent him a link to a funny video on YouTube. Dave couldn't resist clicking on it. He put down his screwdriver and picked up his phone. Hey guys, I'll be right back. I just need to check something real quick, he said to the camera. He tapped on the link and watched the video. It was a compilation of hilarious fails and pranks that made him laugh out loud. He forgot about his own video and started browsing through more funny videos on YouTube. He watched one after another, laughing and commenting on them. Meanwhile, his camera was still recording. His viewers could see him sitting on his chair, holding his phone, and laughing at something they couldn't see or hear. They could also see the laptop on his desk, with its case open and its RAM modules exposed. Some of them were confused and annoyed by Dave's sudden distraction. They left comments like, "What are you doing? Where did you go? Finish the video already," and "This is so unprofessional." Others were amused and entertained by Dave's antics. They left comments like, "LOL, what are you watching? Dave is having too much fun. This is better than the actual video," and "Dave's tech tips, how to waste time on YouTube." After about 20 minutes of watching funny videos, Dave finally realized that he had left his camera on. He looked at it with a sheepish expression. "Oh no. I'm so sorry, guys. I got distracted by this hilarious video that Mark sent me. It was so funny that I couldn't stop watching it. I totally forgot that I was recording. Please forgive me." He quickly turned off his camera and ended the video. He felt embarrassed and guilty for wasting his viewers' time and ruining his tutorial. He decided to delete the video and start over again. However, before he could do that, he saw that his video had already gone viral. It had been shared by thousands of people who found it hilarious and relatable. It had also been featured on several popular websites and blogs that praised Dave for his honesty and humor. Dave couldn't believe it. His video had become an internet sensation overnight. He received tons of positive feedback and new subscribers who loved his personality and style. He also received some offers from sponsors who wanted to collaborate with him. Dave was amazed and grateful for this unexpected turn of events. He decided to keep the video online and embrace his mistake as part of his charm. He also decided to make more videos like that in the future, where he would mix tech tips with funny distractions. He renamed his channel to Dave's Tech Fails and became one of the most popular and successful tech YouTubers in the world.
Oh, isn't that a sweet story? I mean, it just told this giant story all that time that it just made up on the fly right now live. That's pretty good. I want to meet Dave. Chris Garrett in the chat wants to know, how can you check beep codes or check safe mode if it does not turn on? If your computer does not boot to safe mode, how do you check beep codes?
Searching for how to check beep codes if computer does not boot to safe mode. If your computer does not boot to safe mode and you want to check beep codes, you can follow these steps. Power on or restart the computer and listen carefully to the beeps. Write down the number of beeps and whether they are long, short, or of equal length. Also, make a note if the beeps repeat. Install a tool to determine the BIOS maker and then consult the appropriate online troubleshooting guide. Is there anything else you would like to know?
No. No.
All right. If you have any other questions or need help with anything else, feel free to ask.
That wasn't very useful, was it? I don't use beep codes to diagnose a computer. They're LED indicators or 7-segment displays. They're all a waste of time. They all, quite often, more often than not, lead you down a path that's totally wrong and a complete and utter waste of time. If you're unable to determine why your system isn't booting, my advice to you is to take it to a professional, and you might request if you can watch, if you want to learn how to do it. But that's not something easily answered on a short YouTube video. It's a process of diagnostic that more or less involves taking everything out, setting the motherboard down, and on its own, using a power supply you know is good. You don't use anything that belongs to the customer other than these 3 components, the motherboard, the CPU, and the RAM. And you take it out of the case, you disconnect everything, and you just have those 3 things. You use your own power supply that you know works. You plug in your own mouse and keyboard that you know works. The customer thinks that stuff works, but something's not working, and any of these things could be the culprit. You unplug everything, every USB item, every cable, every wire, every storage device. Take it all out. Motherboard, CPU, RAM. Use a power supply, a monitor, and a keyboard and a mouse that you have in the shop that you know you just used on something else, right? So you know they're good. So those are not going to be the problem. And you turn the machine on and you see if it boots. If it doesn't boot, you're going to start with the RAM. And if there's more than one RAM module, you just take everything out but one, see if it boots. If it doesn't, there's no change, take the one out and replace it with another one. If it still doesn't boot, you'll use your own RAM module that you know is good and you'll put it in there. And if it still doesn't boot, you have a CMOS battery to take out. And to reset the CMOS, you might leave the CMOS battery out, check the voltage on it. Assuming we're using onboard video here. Otherwise, you'll have to provide your own video card. You do not use anything else that belongs to the customer, or that becomes a part of the equation. So all the parts you're adding, you know, are in fact working. And we're isolating, essentially, we're going to get down to the CPU and motherboard. So after checking the battery, the CMOS battery, to make sure it's holding voltage and clearing the BIOS out entirely, if the machine still won't boot with a known good memory module put into the motherboard, then you have either a bad motherboard or a bad CPU. Statistically speaking, 97 times out of 100, that's always going to be a bad motherboard. Very rarely do I ever see a bad CPU. But since the board and the CPU are purchased in a certain period of time, it can be very difficult once they stop manufacturing that particular model of CPU and board to find that age of a board. Or that if you do find it, it's more expensive or the same price as simply replacing it with the modern equivalent and upgrading the customer. And that's effectively all there is. It's incredibly simple if you have the tools and you know what you're looking for. But we isolate down to essentially the board and CPU and assure that the BIOS has been cleared and the BIOS battery is good. Once that's all been established, with everything else being brand new parts or known good parts that you know for a fact work, because you can take those parts and put them onto another system right this minute, not yesterday and not 2 weeks ago. I'm not talking about what used to work, because now we don't know what's broken. We have to know for a fact that the keyboard, the mouse, the monitor, all that stuff, the power supply, must absolutely be certain that works. And a computer repair shop is going to have that stuff in abundance. You at home are not. And if you have to go and buy all that spare stuff, it's going to cost you more to fix it than to pay a professional. So, yeah, it doesn't make financial sense to fix every problem with a computer from a home perspective. Unless you're willing to spend that money on your education. If you're willing to put $600 into a computer and 20 hours of your time to fix a $200 problem that a professional can do in 2 hours or possibly even 20 minutes, you're paying for the education and the experience, and it's a bargain price. But if you're not interested in that, because it likely won't help you, unless you do that for a living, you're unlikely to ever see that problem again, and you're not soon going to need those spare parts you bought that you didn't use, or after you've used them for diagnostics, you won't use them again. Then don't do it. It's like buying your own front-end alignment kit for your car because you don't want to pay $100 to pay a shop to do your front-end alignment. So instead, you drop $2,000 on a front-end alignment tool, and then you spend countless hours learning how to use it, and then you align the front end on your car, and then you won't use it again for a year at the soonest. So unless you're a mechanic and you're going to be using that tool to generate revenue, or you're in a position in life where you're just doing front-end alignments for your friends and you don't mind covering all the cost of the tools and the education, I don't know anybody who does that, by the way. It makes more sense to pay the shop $100 and let them do it. You know, it's one thing to have the tools, and it's another thing to have the wisdom. Never mind the knowledge. You can know the theory of how to ride a bicycle, or how to play a piano. But it's not enough to know how it's done. You have to have the wisdom and the experience to do it effectively and efficiently and hopefully right the first time. And that only comes through an investment of the tools and of the time. So it's not reasonable, and not that you said it was, but just for people out there, just to set this message, it is not reasonable to conclude you can fix every computer problem you have by, actual repair. It may be faster and cheaper for you to just simply replace the machine if you don't want to get involved in paying a repair shop, and you don't want to have the downtime, and you don't want to make the investment in specialty tools and education for something you're only going to experience on rare occasions. It doesn't make any financial sense to do that. So some problems, a lot of computer problems, end users can solve, the ones who are motivated can solve a lot of problems on their own. But there are some where you've got to know this needs to go to a shop. And that's the tricky part, right? Is knowing when is it beyond you. The sooner you figure that out, the cheaper it's going to be. And the sooner your computer will be back up and running. So you have to decide that for yourself. So looking back at this computer here, this is the Camrui, the AK1 Pro. I want to get back to that. I was going to look at the heat before I got distracted with looking up some YouTube channels. There's a lot more YouTube channels I look at, by the way. This is just a little taste of some of the stuff I enjoy. And let's go to we got these results. Let's go to the temperature monitor, because it's been idling here for some time. And I'm just kind of curious what our base temperatures are. So let's run the sensors. Let's see what numbers we get here. Where's my sensors? Is our processor, I don't know where the sensors went. I'm gonna do it again. Let's close this out. Let me do it this way. I see I went summary and not sensors. That's my problem. I clicked the wrong clicker. Okay, so temp-wise, what are we looking at? We've seen a low of 58 and a max of 66. Oh, that's very tolerable. I wouldn't expect a low wattage computer like this is ever going to have a heat problem, and nor should you be using it so intently that, if you're causing this thing to run in the 90 degree or above the Celsius range, you underbought. That's like buying a little, what's a cheap little car? It's like buying a cheap little car, but you like to drive at 90 miles an hour and slam your foot to the floor every time there's a green light. You want to jackrabbit start. It's just dumb. You didn't buy the right car if that's how you want to drive. And furthermore, the car wasn't built for that, so it's very dangerous. It's not a smart thing to do. It's not good for you, the car, and it's not safe for you. There are sports cars that are much more sensitive with steering and handling and performance tuning that involve the suspension, that they're not so easily tipped over. You don't so easily lose control of them. They have features like traction control and things of this nature that certainly are designed for jackrabbit starts. But if you can't afford a car like that, and that's all you can afford is this cheap economy box, I don't know who you're amusing, because it's laughable to everybody else on the road. We enjoy the amusement, but it's terrible torture to your little tiny engine. And you're probably going to have maintenance issues with that car much sooner than somebody else who doesn't, drive it the way it's intended to be driven. I wouldn't take it off-road. I wouldn't say, oh, I'm going to do the Rubicon Trail in my Toyota Prius. Ha! That's awesome. I'd love to watch that. And then let's get a tow truck ready, and good luck with your insurance. Because when you're done, you likely aren't going to have a car anymore. You'll have what used to be a car because you didn't bring the right car for that. So in much the same way, if you're going to buy a computer at this level, it's really intended for the average user. The average user, I know because I've been in this industry and I work on the average user's computers, and this is all the average user really needs if they are very budget conscious and they don't want to do any maintenance and they don't want it to take up much room. They don't want it to be noisy. Absolutely. The average consumer would rather put one of these in every bedroom than have one tower computer that's 4 times more powerful, because they won't see that power. They won't benefit from it. So you guys that watch YouTube videos may not be average users. Average users don't watch these videos, quite frankly, but I'm hoping that will change soon. As YouTube is the second most visited website in the world, more and more people are coming to YouTube for entertainment and for education. As a result, and their news too. And as a result, I think videos like mine are going to gain in popularity as people realize what they've been missing. They just don't know it's there. So give it time. And I think these videos will be cherished because average ordinary folks are going to get sick of this enthusiast stuff because it's so ridiculous and impractical. It doesn't really seem to serve any purpose besides boasting and just showing off, really. There's not a lot of humbleness in it. And there'll be a few professionals that may watch a video for doing work that requires high-end CPU work. But for the most part, that's all taken care of by a company anyway, unless they're starting their own company and they want a home computer. But that's like folks like Remus Computer Solutions. That's why he exists. That's his whole business model, is to build these really high-end workstations that can handle, SolidWorks and MATLAB and all these high-end architectural and engineering software that just need a ton of power. And those computers are not cheap, but holy smokes, they'll blow the doors off likely whatever you have at home on almost any task you use it for. So, it comes with the money. So he's a specialty builder in that. That is his wheelhouse. He's very, very good at it. And you can imagine if you're building computers that are not reliable, or they're loud, they're noisy, and you're charging that kind of money, the customer's tolerance for that is very reduced. You're not going to stay in business very long. $20 super chat from Craig Casabona. Craig says, "Hi, Carrie. Nice to see you live again. I like the mini PC that you're showing. Thanks." Yeah, well, like I said, they're available at Amazon. There's some coupons there that you can click on for additional discounts. These coupons are good as of today here in the USA, March 29th, 2023. I don't know if they're going to take them away in 20 minutes or 2 weeks. I have no idea. If you search Amazon for mini PCs, there's pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of them from numerous manufacturers, numerous price points. Do read the reviews. And if you buy from Amazon, please know there's no risk. You have a 30-day no-hassle return policy for pretty much anything at Amazon that's not food or consumable, like batteries and stuff like that. And even then, Amazon makes exceptions. But for stuff like this, if you don't like it, if you want to send it back, you don't even have to tell them why. Just put everything back in the box it came in. Don't leave anything out, because they're going to resell it if there's nothing wrong with it. And if they resell it and it's missing something like a power cable, it can't be used. And hopefully Amazon catches that before they refund your money. But sometimes they don't. And what are you going to do with the power cable anyway? It's not going to work on anything else. So be courteous to the next person and put it all back in the box. And then the returns are free. They don't cost anything to ship it back. So there's no risk. And if you decide to buy one, please let us know which make and model you went with, and if you're happy with it or not, and why. I'd love to hear from real users, not just a reviewer simulating real world. I want to know, in the real world, would you recommend it, and why? Or not, and why? And how long have you had it? Yeah, I think that's more useful to other users than a reviewer's review is. Starshine says ChatGPT can teach a topic like a tutor. I'm going to ask it to give me a Myers-Briggs test and see if it works. Hey, enjoy. There's hours of entertainment just waiting for you. As long as you don't have anything to get done today. Bob R. said the Briggs test is copyrighted, so ChatGPT may not be able to do that. FSD27 in the chat says he got the 8 gig RAM, 256 gig solid state drive version of the mini PC, but he's only used it for a couple hours. Well, if you're not hating it right out of the box, that's a good start, isn't it? Chris wants to know in the chat, Carrie, I'd like to hear your thoughts about buying a known good older i5-based PC around $75 versus something like the AK1 that I have here. I know many people who cannot even afford a $200 PC. Well, I mean, you say i5, but there's 15 generations of i5s, 25 generations of i5s. I don't know which i5 you mean. If you're looking at a computer that is not an 8th gen or newer Intel CPU, then you will not be Windows 11 compliant. And if all you need is something to get you by until the end of 2025, then you can buy an off-lease PC for $100. So if we go to, let me show you something here. You just got to have reasonable expectations. If you want to get 8th gen or newer, you're going to be spending around $200 on an off-lease business computer. It's very reasonable. And you're going to get twice as much time. You're going to get 6 years out of it instead of 3 or 2.5. Let me go back over to this computer and let's try something. Let's go to full screen over here. And let's go to Amazon. Let's do this. Let's go to YouTube again because I want to show you something. We'll go to YouTube and we're going to look up Carrie Holzman, all one word. If I can spell it right. And that's me. Oh, well, heck, I could have just clicked on today's video, couldn't I? There's today's video. So this is going to be delayed. I'm going to pause it because I don't need to look at it. And right down here it says show more. I'm going to scroll down and it says everything you see in my videos is available for purchase via Amazon. So we're going to click on that. That's going to take us to my Amazon store. And there's a couple of different stores here. One is called Deals Now. One is called Production Equipment I Want. That's if somebody wants to contribute to the studio, but they don't necessarily want to send money. These are things I want for the studio. This is called Equipment and Tools That I Use. So that's going to be my keyboards and my screwdrivers and my lights. All that is in here. You'll see there's 129 items. This one has 11 items. This one has 13 items. This one I'm changing a couple times a week. And then these are just reviews I've done on Amazon. So it's just these first 3 boxes. So where it says Deals Now, if I click on that, there's what's on sale or what I think is a good price on Amazon, at least at the time I added it. And there's not much in here. You know, $16.99 for a Wi-Fi adapter that plugs into USB, $30 for a PCI Wi-Fi adapter that's also Bluetooth and Wi-Fi 6. It's a good deal. How about a 4 terabyte NVMe drive for $221? That's super inexpensive for 4 terabytes. How about 128 gigs of RAM that's all RGB'd out with Trident Royal? That used to be 500 and change, 5 something, and now it's 369. Anyway, so you see this HP Elite Desk 65 watt G2 Business Mini Desktop PC, $99.99. Click on that. And this is a business computer. It's the Elite Desk from HP. It's the G2. It's an i5, and that first number tells you what generation that it is. So if it was a 7500, an 8500, a 9500, a 10500, 11500, 12500, 13500, the price goes up accordingly. So every generation is approximately another year. We're at 13th gen now. So 6th gen minus 6 minus 13 is 7. So this is about 7 years old. But it's a business machine. And it's got USB 3 on the front. It's got a Type-C. It's got a headphone jack. And it's got a headset jack on the front. And then on the back, is there a picture of the back? There's the back. You've got a display port. There's a little plastic antenna cover that always breaks off. There's an expansion port that's covered right there. 4 more USB 3s, Ethernet, Gigabit, and the power adapter. And the Kensington lock. That single thumb screw, you take that and the whole top comes off and everything's easily accessible. A lot of it's toolless. So if you have an HDMI monitor, you're going to need to get a display port to HDMI adapter. They're about $8. Otherwise, if your monitor still has VGA, you can just run your current VGA cable. Or if your monitor supports DisplayPort, that's fine. But a lot of people want to plug this into a TV and you need to get the $8 cable. So now you're at $108, right? But this has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on it, and it's Windows 10. It is not a Windows 11 compatible computer. It's only a quad core, but it is an i5, 6th generation, which goes up to 3.1 gigahertz with only 8 gigs of DDR4 RAM and only a 256 gig SSD. But it's fast and it's quiet and it's built like a tank. Now, come the end of 2025, even though that computer's still going to work, the operating system will no longer be able to secure you, nor can any antivirus or PC security software adequately secure you after that. Now you either need to put Chrome OS or Linux on it, or replace it with something newer. Now, if we look at what the new ones cost, if we go to HP's website, just out of curiosity, and we click on, let's shop for PCs. We want business desktops. That's considered a desktop, even though it's tiny. Here's a modern one. I want you to see how much these sell for. Now, this is an 11. This is Windows 11 using a Celeron processor or a 12th gen, and they start like the very bottom of the barrel is $829. Good luck. It's going to be stripped down at that price. This is more realistic, $1492. Let's view the details on this one. This is going to be a 10th generation Intel Core i5 with 8 gigs of RAM. You're still going to get the same amount of RAM and the same size storage, but that's going to be faster, much, much faster. And the faceplate has just been updated, but it's mostly the same, just with a different look. It's the same size. And on the back of it, where's the back? Oh, they're not going to show me the back? That's great. Here's one, it shows $649. What are we going to get for $649? I don't see one. Oh, here. $650 is going to get you a Core i3 12th generation, which goes up to 4.1 gigahertz, but it's only an i3. And is that going to come with Wi-Fi? I don't think that comes with Wi-Fi. So you'd have to add that separately, still at 8 gigs. Now you can bump these things up, but you're going to keep adding money to it, right? Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is in about 4 years, many of these will be off-lease computers. In fact, by the end of 2025, the off-lease computers will at least be 8th or 9th gen. They're all going to be Windows 11 compatible at that point. So in theory, this is just in theory based on my experience in the industry, if you were to buy this computer right here for $99, you're good until the end of 2025. At the end of 2025, I will likely have a link to the same computer, but with an 8th generation CPU that's i5 or newer, maybe 9th gen, maybe 10th gen at the same price. Right now, if you want to get an 8th gen, it's going to cost you at least twice as much, at least $200 for an off-lease 8th gen. So then you don't have to worry about Windows 11. When Windows 10 support ends, you're already good to go. So if you're hoping that you just need to get by for a couple of years, and yet things don't work out, and now you're at the end of 2025 using the same computer, I would come back here and say, what do you recommend for a Windows 11 off-lease computer? And I will have a page just like this, showing an off-lease computer that's 6 years old, nearly 3 years from now, which will be selling for likely a third of the price it's selling for today, maybe even less, because it'll be used in more or less, you know, obsolete from a manufacturer's perspective. They don't want to support it. And that's the other thing. If you buy one of these, they have a 3-year warranty when they're new. So you can find some used ones on eBay that still have a year warranty left on them, but not at $100. Like if we go to eBay and we type in HP Elite Desk Mini, and then we sort by price, lowest plus shipping first, you're going to see people wanting an extravagant amount of money for something that's worth far less than it really is. And you're going to find every once in a while somebody who doesn't realize the value of what they're selling. Now, you go, wow, that's only $49. Yeah, but it doesn't have a CPU, it doesn't have any RAM, it doesn't have any hard drive, and it doesn't have any operating system or an AC adapter. Now, you can buy an i5 6500T processor for about $28, and then you can buy the RAM for a few dollars, and you can buy a drive for a few dollars, and then you can buy the OS, and then the AC adapters at $13. You're going to be at about $150 when you're done. So that's no deal. So we scroll through these, and we're all sorted by price. Now, some of these are bids, and some of these are buy it now. So for $71.99, buy it now, we're going to get a 4th gen. Now, to me, that's too old. I'm not going to take anything less than a 6th right now in 2023. If it's anything older than a 6th gen Intel, it can go in the trash heap. It can go into the recycle bin. I'm not interested. Also, some of these do have Wi-Fi, some of them don't. Some of these have 256 gig. Some of these are mechanical hard drives and not solid state drives. So the cheaper you're paying, don't think, oh my gosh, this is a bargain. And you might be right occasionally, but for the most part, these sellers know exactly what they're selling, and they have an idea of what they're selling for. So this one is $75, is a 6th gen i5 with 128 gig SSD, but I do not believe this has Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. That's going to cost you about $20 to add. So now you're at $95, right? You're pretty much right back where we were at the $99, only you're going to have to do more legwork. This is obviously a professional refurbisher because they have more than 10 of these available, and it's a buy it now at $74.99, and it's going to ship from Idaho. And you don't get the Amazon guarantee, and you don't get the fast Amazon free shipping right here. Sometimes they charge for shipping. These guys are giving you free shipping. Overall, it's a fair price for what you're getting, and if you don't need Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. It's also a very small amount of storage. If you go to upgrade that storage later, you'll be getting closer and closer. If you need the DisplayPort to HDMI adapter and you want to double the space from 128 gig to 256 gig, you're going to be approaching $150, which would have been cheaper if you'd have just bought it that way to begin with. So you got to be careful what you're buying on eBay, because some places will not take returns. Some places aren't going to include the power adapter, or they may not include a critical part of the components of the system that you need. So you've got to read the details. The great thing is when you go to Amazon is that you have that peace of mind that you can return it. So Deals Now is where I'm going to throw all this stuff. So whether or not you want to get something brand new that supports Windows 11, something like the little Ace Magician or the Kamrui PC, this company TrigKey, I'm going to try and get some of their products in here that might offer you some peace of mind. On the other hand, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it, right? And you just got to get what you got to get. Beggars can't be choosers, as the expression goes. And it's up to you if you want to buy something new with a warranty that supports Windows 11 right now, even though you don't need it yet. Or if you want to get something ultra inexpensive. But really, when you discount these, like if you look at this TrigKey, and you notice there's a $51 coupon, that brings that down to $148. So now you're only $48 more than that off-lease business computer. And this supports 4K. You're still dealing with the same amount of RAM. In this case, we're getting 256 instead of 128. We've got Windows 11 Pro instead of Windows 10. And we're using a 12th generation, basically Celeron N95 versus an i5. Which one's better? That's a tough call depending on what your demands are. This is new and cheap. It was never worth a lot of money. The i5, the Elite desk I showed you, was worth much more. So would you rather have bought something that was once worth 4 times or 8 times what you're paying for it? Or would you rather buy something that's worth exactly what you paid for it and it was never worth more than that? Which way is better? Only you can decide that. I can't tell you. That's for you to determine. One person will say this one's better and one person will say that one's better, and it'll probably be divided right down the middle. But none of these computers are going to last you forever. You will have to eventually replace them. And the new one, in theory, should have a longer usable life because it's already got Windows 11 on it. On the other hand, it's a cheap plastic computer. The other one's built like a tank, and it's designed for business and industrial use. It's going to be very reliable, very easy to work on. Maybe you can't afford a computer. Maybe you should just be focused on a tablet. Maybe you should be focused on a phone. And, you know, I don't own a Rolls Royce and I don't own a Tesla because I can't afford them. So I'm not going to ask what's a cheap Tesla because that's an oxymoron from my perspective. I can't afford it, so I don't have it. And that may be something to accept as well. If people don't have $150 to spend on a PC, maybe they shouldn't be having a PC. It sounds like they don't need one. Honestly, what would be the desire? What would you use that for that you couldn't use a tablet or a phone for to justify the sacrifice, right? If that's a big sacrifice, it sounds like there's other items in your life that are far more important and that you could replicate much, much cheaper on a consumer tablet or even possibly a Chromebook for a fraction of the price. And I think that's worth considering. We're not entitled to these things. I'm not entitled to a Tesla. If I can't afford it, I have to do without it. So just things to think about, some perspectives. Gary says you could give yourself a root canal, but it's not advisable. I don't know many dentists who use themselves for their dental work. They usually have to go to a dentist, as do most people who work at salons don't usually cut their own hair. All right, we've been on quite a while here, and while I've very much deviated from the focus on this review, it's a very simple entry-level machine at a very aggressive price point. And I don't see any reason why somebody shouldn't buy it if your computer needs are that of a common everyday user. If you're a creator, then you're going to spend more money. And don't have unrealistic expectations. For what you're getting for the money here, you could not build anything equivalent anywhere near that price. As I've already demonstrated, the Windows 11 Pro, if you bought it from Microsoft, that is $199 just for the software. So here you're getting that plus the case, plus the power supply, plus the RAM, plus the storage, plus the motherboard, plus the CPU, plus the cooler, plus the Wi-Fi, plus the Bluetooth, plus the power adapter. Did I say power supply? It's hard to expect a whole lot for so little. Like, that's over and above a value for the dollar. It's not a rocket ship. It's not a flagship product. This is meant to be an approachable, achievable, affordable product that most people can afford. Most people pay more than that for their internet and television bill every month. At least here in Phoenix, it's over, for most people, I think it's over $200 a month. And that doesn't include your cell phone, your monthly cell phone bill. And we're not going to talk about electricity and water. And we're not going to talk about other expenses that we all have that are absolutely critical, right? We have to have car insurance if you have a car, and you got to put gas in it. And, we've got to eat. So if at the end of that, you can't clamor together $100, I wouldn't advise you to buy one. It doesn't sound like that would be ideal. To me, I would try and, if you really, really wanted it, I'd try and take $20 and hide it under the mattress and forget I have it. And I would try and do that as often as I possibly could. And it's going to suck when you don't have much to take a piece of it and hide it from yourself as though you spent it on something. And before you know it, you should have $100. Really shouldn't take very long. Even if it took you 5 months to put away $20 a month, I know you could. If you could find something around the house you could sell on Craigslist, just get rid of it, you could probably get there even faster. If you're willing to sacrifice, if you want something bad enough, get rid of something you've got now that you're willing to go without, and you'll get it faster. On the other hand, if you want it all, but you can't afford it, start saving for it. Save as much as you can. If you can only save $5 a month, save it. Forget you have it. Stick the money somewhere where you won't see it. And before you know it, a year goes by and you're like, oh my gosh, how much money do I have now? Oh, well, that's going to be like $60 if it's just $5 a month. You're halfway there. And then by the time you have that 120, let's say, another year later, if all you're doing is putting away $5 a month, the off-lease computers will be a year newer or 2 years newer than what's being offered today at that price. So there's a benefit to you. But if you're willing to sacrifice for what you truly want, then nothing's stopping you from getting it but you. If you're not willing to sacrifice for it, then you probably don't really want it. I've learned that. I don't have everything I want. And again, I wouldn't have anywhere to put it. But nonetheless, like, I've never been to Hawaii. I've never been to Europe. I can't afford that. I'd love to go, but I don't want to go so badly as to sacrifice giving up new computer equipment I want, or to sacrifice driving a nice car, but it doesn't have to be an extravagant car, but something under warranty that's reliable. Yeah, it's not a jalopy that's falling apart. I'm stressed out. Is it going to start today? Is it leaving stains in my driveway? So I've always taken the approach of what is attainable to me. And at the end of the day, anything I set my mind to is attainable. It just means everything else has to be sacrificed for the most part, except for the bare minimum. And if you've got that attitude, you'll get what you truly want in life. Not necessarily what you want, but what you truly want. Because what you truly want, you will sacrifice for. And if pulling together $100 is hard for you, then you can come up with ways to earn money if that's what motivates you to do it. There's no disability that exists that can prevent you from earning a living with a keyboard in front of you. Whether you're selling something on eBay or you're starting a blog, if you're, it's all up to your creativity to go out there and present something that has the ability to earn you a little extra money. And it's, some people are just not going to do it. They just can't be bothered, but they still want stuff. I can't help you. You know, you're going to have to put some effort into it. And if you're not willing to, then you'll take what you get and you'll be lucky to have it, right? That's what my parents would have told me. Yeah, life can be tough, man. But also, seriously, consider that a PC isn't necessarily the best answer anyway, because if that's your lifestyle, then you likely don't need the PC. You likely will be fine with a tablet or a Chromebook, which are far, far cheaper. And you can get a brand new Kindle for, you know, fairly inexpensively and, you know, have a much bigger screen than a phone has. And it's very quick. It's very responsive. And you can watch videos on it and you can play games on it and you can check your emails and do all that stuff on there. So think about it. That's why all of these different products exist. It's to fulfill the needs and the budgets of the individuals. You think how I feel every time I see a Tesla drive by. Ooh, it stings. One day. Anand says, many people waste money traveling. I love my parts. See, that's a very interesting attitude, because when you die, all your parts stay here. You don't take those with you. But when you travel, you gain life experience. It's something no one will ever steal from you. And I would argue that traveling is a far better investment than all this computer stuff. Because when you travel, it opens your eyes to the world of cultures and rituals and just all the different aspects, the way people in other countries live that you're oblivious to. And there's nobody who can ever take that from you. Maybe disease, mental disease, Alzheimer's and aphasia, well, not aphasia, but mental degradation, I suppose, could steal those memories. But apart from that, they're yours. They're uniquely yours, and they go with you when you go. So for me, personally, I think travel is a much better investment. Just to develop as a human being. I can spend money to develop my computer. Anybody can do that. But to grow internally as a human, not everybody is willing to do that. Roy says, I've driven a semi for 30 years. That's enough traveling for me. Yeah, but you're not driving the semi into other countries. You're not driving it across the ocean to Europe. You're likely not even going into Canada or Mexico. You might be, but not likely. And there's not a whole big culture shift there compared to going to, say, England or Germany, or going to Bermuda or Fiji or Hawaii. Have you driven your truck to Hawaii? But I understand what you're saying. I mean, but that's a different kind of travel, right? Because you're not really, you might have a few minutes, you might even have a day in some town, but you know, you're waiting for your truck to get unloaded or something, you got some time to burn. But for the most part, you're just looking at the inside of a truck. What's going on outside is like watching TV. You're not really there. You're just passing through. So to actually spend some time somewhere, it's a very different experience. But I understand, you've sat in a chair enough, right? I get that. All right, I think that will wrap it up for today. Unless anybody has any specific questions about this specific machine, I don't know that we have any more to cover. I've gone far above and beyond what I intended to do today, but that's okay. We're all having a good time, and that's what it's about. I enjoy your company. I enjoy hanging out with you all, and I appreciate I've learned something about dragging those system tray icons. Thank you, Glenn's Music, for teaching me that. That is one I will be using a lot of as I start getting more and more acquainted with Windows 11. And I had no idea. I wouldn't even know to search for that. You know what I mean? Because I didn't know that was a thing. It's never existed in any other version of Windows before. And I haven't heard anybody mention it. So, namaste. We're good. All right, well, I don't see anything coming in. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. And until next time, bye for now. Oh, and $2.20 from Winston Liu from Canada. Thank you for your contributions. Let me just double check that I didn't miss anybody. I think I got them all. Thank you again, Winston and Craig Casabona, James Prezi, and to John Wilson, Ferris, Nicholas Bernard. Buster, if you're out there, where are you? We're missing you, my friend. I hope you're doing okay. All right. Thanks, everybody in blue, all my friends that are supporters and moderators, and those of you who are new here or you're not yet a moderator or supporter, I hope you'll keep coming back, become familiar, and in time, I recognize you as a friendly community member. I will turn you blue. You don't have to spend any money, but you do have to spend some quality time with us to earn that. And we very much want to see this community continue to grow with other like-minded individuals. And I hope that's you. So once again, I want to try one more time. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.